If you like pancakes, then you're going to absolutely love today. Meters in total. This 140 meters altitude gain for the whole, a bit like riding on a billiard table. What about our leader? Let's hear from him. Well, it was quite some way from for days, I think you might say. He bounced, but he stays in the lead with 2 kilometers to go.
In the final, we were afraid when we...
Yeah, we wanted to stay in the front because everybody scared the gaps. Will finish and maybe lose something, and yeah, like that. And one moment,
But everything's okay.
Yes, yes.
With the rages in the bench, came to congratulate you. How was it? Can you?
Yeah, a lot of guys for me because I'm long time in cycling and I had hard years and good years, and I see that many guys was. It was really magic to ride. If a big team like that in the front is different, but with one team, for them it was first time, and it was really something. Everybody make funny jokes. We really enjoy it.
Well, eventually there was no change in the GC as there was no split due to that crash laid on. So Tarancón by a margin of 25 seconds on Kenny Elissonde and 30 to Primož Roglič. Well, there was a change, however, in the points classification as Fabio Jakobsen took advantage of his superb victory to also grab the red jersey away from Jesper Philipsen, the green jersey, I should say. There he is, double thumbs up, happy boy. Well, the Dutchman is now leading the classification with 100 points, which is 32 more than the Belgian from Alpecin-Fenix, who's the closest competitor to him. Philipsen could have the opportunity to take back more points today. So let's take a look at today's stage. This is how things stack up in that points jersey competition. Matthews far from out of it as well. Aaron Burrow will be looking lively, possibly at the intermediate. Stage 5. Well, we could be playing this on an enormous billiard table. Only 640 metres of altitude gained today, which is virtually nothing at all. There are some big turns, however, and one of them comes at the sprints, just beyond it by about 1,800 metres. So it could get lively if the wind picks up, and there is a big chance that that might indeed happen late on this afternoon. We're going to hear from Fernando Escartin about his thoughts.
So we are joined now by the race architect of La Vuelta, Fernando Escartin. Señor Escartin, ¿por qué esta etapa es tan especial?
So what makes this stage so very special? Well, first of all, it's special because of all the echelons. It's a complicated stage that always creates some expectations. So far, it seems that we've not had much wind, but if it gets a little nervous today and just a little bit of wind, then it could turn into a very nice show to watch on TV. So what's your experience about this stage back in 1996? That was a long time ago. Yeah, really bad sensations actually, because when I arrived in Albacete, I lost all my options for the GC standings, losing 7 or 8 minutes, if I remember correctly. So what's your advice to the riders today then, if you've had that experience? Well, the most important thing, he says, is to ride towards the front and to stay vigilant and eventually have a little luck as well.
The architect of the race here in La Vuelta.
Nacer Bouhanni it was that won back in 2014 ahead of Michael Matthews. Peter Sagan also very much involved in the push line. But Bouhanni, and he started quite a far way back. It looked like a combative finale there, drifting. No penalty, but nonetheless, we'd only just learnt about his style, which was, well, as you know, very combative. Matthews probably has still some sour memories of it, but nonetheless, we race on, and today, same destination, Albacete. So, this was a little bit earlier on today. The flag dropped and off we went. Kilometre 0, heading to the wild blue yonder. It's a big sky country that we're dealing with today, because there's virtually no features at all. If you would like to double your field of vision today on this stage, then just get a copy of the local telephone directory and stand on it. It's very flat. There's only 640 metres of altitude gain over the full length of 184.4 kilometres. So out of all that distance, less than just over half a kilometre of altitude gain. You'll barely notice it, to be honest. So if you like pancakes, I know it's not Shrove Tuesday, it's Wednesday, and, well, if you like pancakes, you'll certainly love today. However, the wind could be a major factor. Let us see, indeed, if it plays its hand. 118.1 kilometres to go. I guess the blessing is that we haven't actually been here for the whole stage. We did witness our breakaway being established, nonetheless. And out front, we have Palejo Sanchez from Burgos. His first time in the break. He was 14th in the GC in the Arctic Race of Norway. He's only a youngster, 21 years of age, and a lot being spoken about him in very, very hushed terms, so watch out for him. We've got a sprinter up here as well in Oli Lazcano from Caja Rural. He indeed beat Dan McClay in the pack on stage 3 in Portugal, and to be honest, from a breakaway he can be quite lethal because he's quicker than people kind of think. He's only 21 for Caja Rural. He's up the road. And Aspirin, probably need one of those at the end of the day, to be honest. He is up the road as well. All 22 years of him for Euskaltel Euskadi. So the three Amigos teams of Burgos, Caja Rural and Euskaltel playing the game yet again as we come into Belmonte. The man from Belmonte says yes, if you're a sprinter. And we have plenty of sprint options today. How will it pan out? Don't know. It all depends on whether the wind picks up later on today. We're hovering around 11 kilometres per hour, but the wind is swinging round to the southeast, and that means that we could have quite a busy end to today. And by end, I mean from around about 55, 60 kilometres to go, because they could be picking up for the sprint. Not necessarily the sprint in itself, but the big turn that comes 1,800 metres after it. We'll be heading almost due south at that point, and if the wind has picked up, and we're expecting it to do so, about 18-20 kilometres per hour, then that is going to be a more or less a cross headwind, turning into a full crosswind for the last 30 kilometres, because we'll have another turn at Barracks. Yeah, I'll be using that as an expletive later on, I can tell you some of them. So let's wait and see. There'll be a crosswind then for the last 30 k's. And so it could get very, very lively. For the moment, it's very calm. There we are. Belmonte, which means beautiful mountain, I think. Be hard pushed to find one round here. There is some high ground, but we're not playing with it. So there you go. We look forward to today and your good company, but get yourself a comfy seat, because and don't doze off, for goodness sake. A flask of coffee, please. We'll have plenty to talk about along the way. For the time being, it's kind of honours even, as you will, with three riders completely acceptable to the peloton, who are tidily up the road, and they're holding a handsome gap at the moment of 7 minutes. That does not spell danger, quite clearly. Best placed man, 10 minutes 26 down. Sean, if you've got a crumpled shirt, you could iron it on today's course. And we still wait to hear from Sean Kelly. We've got some link issues today. Certainly hope that they're ironed out, because you're going to get very fed up with me deep into this race, if indeed that's how it pans out. Some of our friends have just taken off on a commercial break while we just play with the terrain today as much as we possibly can do. There we are, Belmonte, con la Vuelta. This is a five-a-side football pitch with scuffs and bruises. Some suffered yesterday, of course, by Ryan Taramay with a late tumble. He, speaking a little bit earlier today, said he was absolutely delighted by being in the leader's jersey, naturally enough, but actually so were his team, which is a wonder. And his team, very happy and just shooting the breeze yesterday. Said there was lots of joking and smiles. Well, over the next couple of days, if they have that sole duty out front, I think their smiles may just get a little bit fixed. One of those awful photographs that your dad took too long to set up. But yes, they've got some help today, as you can see. Already Group Armour at least suggesting that they might be helping out today, and the chase will be them and Alpecin-Fenix, you can be sure, and Ineos Grenadiers as well, I'm certain will probably get in the mix. De Koenig will be there. Ineos, of course, just on policing duties. Interestingly, yesterday Egan Bernal was asked whether he now is the sole leader of the team. No, I'm not, he said. This is a very long race, and of course there's a lot of tired minds and tired legs. But with the sort of terrain that we've got here at the Vuelta, you just never know what might happen. Oh, we shall see. I'm just going to try and reconnect with Mr. Kelly. Sean, are you with us? No, still can't hear Sean Kelly. I understand
Hello?
that Sean...
Yes,
you're back. Oh, how lovely.
Eventually.
Oh, we finally nailed it back together, which is lovely. Good to have you good company. I'm not quite sure, even though I love a pancake, as you know, for the size of me. This is probably a bit too much for me to eat on my own, Sean. And just look at that. We'll welcome back our wider Eurosport family in just a moment. Well, that is a straight road, and we've got plenty of these to play with today, if indeed this is a game. You could probably play snooker on this, to be honest. It's a very flat day, and there seems to be absolutely no worry, although some billowing clouds, as you can see, some cumulonimbus just settling themselves on the wide plain here. And if we do get storms even quite a way away from us, then there is a great possibility that we might get some wind a little bit later on. We're expecting it to pick up from about 11 kilometres per hour, which we're experiencing at the moment, to about 18. Let's see. If that happens, then the intermediate sprint, which comes, still got quite a way to go before we get there, to be fair. About 55 kilometres out, we'll start racing for that intermediate sprint. Not necessarily because of the sprint, but because of the big turn that comes after it. And indeed, then we're going to be playing with crosswinds and cross headwinds from that moment on. Hopefully. Mikel Landa just checking he's got all his gels in place. Not that it's a great task to actually go back to the car and collect some more at this sort of pace. Sean, it's modest.
Yes, it is modest for the moment. You would maybe expect that in the earlier part of the day. At this stage, it's noted for history and windy conditions, and more so on the end. But unfortunately, the wind direction is not as the organisers were hoping, because normally you would have the wind westerly direction here, so it's not in that direction today. So unfortunately, I think it's not going to be the same as the organisers were hoping. This would be really a spiced up stage, and you would have a lot of action in the final and risk of echelons. And the history goes back. If you look back at the times we've come in here in the last 25 years, 5 of the 6 times they finished here, like there were small groups came in, so that tells it is an area. And I remember back in my day, I finished here in Albacete as well, and horrible windy conditions in the end, in the final 50-60 kilometres, when you're in that zone where it does blow. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what way the wind will be in the end here today. Will it be enough? The direction blowing, it is going to be a bit of a side wind, but more of a headwind, I believe. So yeah, it might not be exactly as the organisers were hoping.
Well, if it's bad for the riders, it's possibly entertaining for us. We've got some Vuelta stories, by the way. Let's hear from the riders and their thoughts on social media.
There you go. How's the sun cream though?
Good.
Yeah? Wunderbar.
And State Bank for social media.
Hey opa, ben je blij? Bedankt opa. Heb je het gezien? Ja joh, herhaling kijken joh.
Make by.
Plezier jongen. We gaan er nog maken voor u. Ja, we gaan er nog maken.
Adios.
Tangra morte, no problem.
You know, it's hard to imagine, or indeed to describe to you, just how popular that win has been. I'm sure you can possibly imagine. Everybody is so pleased for Fabio Jakobsen. It's been a long road back for him. I guess a quick recovery as well is a credit to him and his determination, and he has shown that not only with wins in, of course, Wallonia, but now on a Grand Tour as well. Sean, I'm sure you feel precisely the same. It was a wonderful moment to see him win, and win so dramatically as well.
Yes, well, you know, when we pan back to the big crash last year in Poland, you know, it was just frightening to see, and you know, not nice to see. And then we're wondering, would he ever come back, you know, to be a normal again, not even to ride his bike. And you know, we've been getting information, you know, over the last 12 months how he's coming along, and it's amazing, you know, the recovery that those guys that they can you know, have so quickly, because you know, the way he has come back from those horrible injuries, and to be at this level again, you know, at this time, it's just it's an unbelievable thing to see, and a great thing to see. And you know, for everybody, Fabio Jakobsen yesterday, he was thanking everybody, the hospitals, everybody looked after him, his family, of course, the team. You know, there's so much work and sacrifice going into it. That's a long, hard road recovery, but you know, those guys are prepared to do that. And then when you get the results yesterday to win a stage in a big 3-weeker for Jakobsen, that was a huge relief, and you know, an achievement. And you know, after all the hard work, it's just wonderful to see.
Well, it now poses a little bit of a conundrum, I mean a pleasant one, I guess, for the Koenig Quick-Step themselves. Of course, Jakobsen not going to the Tour de France, it was all part of his build-up, and indeed this is his introduction or reintroduction to Grand Tour racing. Fantastic to see Fabio Jakobsen back, but what does this do for Mark Cavendish's chances of making it to the Tour next year? Because if Jakobsen continues in this vein, he's hard to look by as principal status for the Tour de France itself, Sean.
Yes, well, that is an interesting one, and that's, you know, something we could have a long discussion on. Mark Cavendish, of course, he haven't signed yet, or we haven't heard that he is re-signed with the Koenig Quick-Step and Patrick Lefevre. So yeah, you know, that's something that we have to wait and see where's that going, because we did hear at the end of the Tour of France he was going to have a sit down with Patrick Lefevre very quickly after the Tour, and you know, see what the future held for Mark Cavendish, and we haven't got anything really updates on that. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But Jakobsen, you know, coming back to his best, and he was a rider that was, you know, being taken along within the Koenig Quick-Step and building to these, you know, big tours. And of course he has, you know, won stages in big tours already, but the Tour of France was always going to be the objective until the accident. But now he's back in the frame again, so yeah, that's interesting times to see what way things will pan out within the Koenig Quick-Step. The question is, Mark Cavendish, does he want to go back to the Tour of France? Because, you know, this year it was such a dream Tour of France for him. Does he want to finish on that note? We don't know that yet, but you know, we'll have to wait and time will tell.
Yes, it will. I think being level with Eddie Merckx in stage wins at 34 for the Tour de France, I think, you know, he'd probably take that. Thank you very much. Some questions, of course, that constantly rain down upon him about where his destination is. Leave the guy alone. We'll find out in good time. Well, Fabio Jakobsen yesterday just biding his time as well, and notably at the intermediate sprint. He'd gone for the intermediates, don't forget, on stage 2. And there was just a little bit missing percentage-wise at the very end when Jesper Philipsen took the day. And so Jakobsen perhaps wisely deciding not to go for the intermediate sprint, and it was almost like swapping duties because Philipsen had been absent from the first of those intermediate sprints back on stage 2, and then went for it this time by, and at what cost? Well, he built up a little advantage in the green jersey competition, had Philipsen yesterday at the intermediate, but Jakobsen, of course, with his victory, and Philipsen way out of position, just losing out. Sasha Modolo lost his back wheel as his lead-out man. Philipsen just decided to follow the wheel of Arnaud Demar. I mean, we'll talk about this again later on because it may well be a similar scenario. I don't think too many will be following Demar's wheel again when they've got such strong lead-out men. But anyway, yeah, the man who hoovered up the intermediate points was Florian Seneschal for De Koenig Quickstep on behalf of Fabio Jakobsen, just to make sure that Philipsen didn't get too many. And Seneschal himself, of course, was the man who was first to Jakobsen when he crashed in Poland, and has been credited with saving his life because well, just of the actions that he took, immediate first aid essentially. And so Seneschal himself yesterday was also acknowledged as a hero by Fabio Jakobsen, and quite rightly too. A man who has suffered post-traumatic stress since that incident as well, has Seneschal. So it shows you how brutal this game can be, and it's not just the fallen, it's those who have witnessed it as well, who of course do carry a burden beyond that. And it's great to see that both Seneschal's functioning fabulously as well as Fabio Jakobsen himself. So for all of those gifts we are most grateful, and in a period of time for the planet when there's an awful lot of bad news about, it's lovely to have some good news to share with you. And certainly Fabio Jakobsen yesterday was very good news for everybody, and that green jersey upon his back, well, it's very welcome to us all. So this is how we stack up overall. Taramate remains the leader. Took a tumble yesterday, but was within the 3 kilometre mark, and in fact it was about 2 from home. He spoke to us earlier on today. I think you may well be hearing part of that coming up. He sits at 25 seconds in advance of Elisont, who wears the polka dot jersey on behalf of Taramate. No, of course, climbs today or tomorrow. Although it does get very, very loud thereafter this race. So it's been sprinter friendly, I think, until this moment. But yeah, Rein Taramate describing just how wonderful the experience was, not only for him but for his team, to have the duty of chasing yesterday. Sometimes that can be a burden, but they took it on with great will, and I guess a kind of a, I don't really want to say unique situation, but I guess it is Grand Tour wise for wanting to have the leader's jersey, and indeed to be enjoying life with Rein Taramate. So let's hear from him. Just how nice was it yesterday? I wonder if we'll get bored by the end of today having to do the same task. Let's hear from him.
Ryan, can you give us some news? We saw your leg. Everything's okay?
Yeah, everything is okay. Just normal small crash happening in nervous peloton. It's okay.
So today you are at 100% because it can be a very hard day. What did you say at the briefing about the wind, the crosswind?
There is possibility, but possibility is not so high. So we are ready, but we know the places where wind can play the role. But we don't really believe the wind. We will see at the end, but I try to relax and think that there is no wind.
How will the team organize if there is crosswind? Who are the riders who are the best in this kind of race?
For me, it's Kevin Van Melsen, Riccardo Minali and Wesley Greder. They are riders for flat parcours and they make Belgium Classics, so we try to stick together, and also we try to use a little bit other teams.
Thank you very much. Good luck, Rein.
We try and use some other teams. Well, there will be other teams that get interested. Nobody wants to throw something silly away to a breakaway. Primož Roglič. Strange, Sean, to see him in his trade kit, to be honest. He's always leading something.
Yes, that's true. A lot of time in these stage races we see him, he's in race leader's kit, and it's nice to see him in the real colours of his team, and it's a lovely situation for the team Jumbo-Visma to be in, because those days, they can conserve their energy and just wait on the more difficult days to come. And it's going to be a pretty hard race for those guys. We did see that the first uphill finish we had in Pico Blanco, Jumbo-Visma, they were struggling a bit, but again, maybe it takes a little bit of time for them to get settled into the race. Seb Kuss, we did see, lost quite a bit of time, which was surprising, and some of the other riders as well, I expect them to be up there for a bit longer into that final climb and on the climb itself. But we remember the Tour of France, with the race leader as well. The team wasn't up to it in the first days when they had to defend a little bit on the weak side looking, but they came good when it was needed. And I think Jumbo-Visma, they will be good when the real difficult days come and when they have to ride and have to defend and look after their leader.
So the balance of expectation tips to the sprinters yet again. Nice to see Jakobsen resplendent in his green jersey, which he owns by rights, and indeed deeper today. Will he add to that? Well, many of the predictors today are picking Fabio Jakobsen. I think they want more of the same, to be honest. Whether he'll start to assemble the kind of rack of wins that likes of Pataki used to assemble in La Vuelta. He used to come on a raiding party from Italy. I think he got 14 stage wins to his name in the past. He used to come here and go home with an armful. And then sprinting really wasn't a friend, or the race wasn't a friend to sprinters, I don't think, for quite a few years. But right now, Sean, we've got a defined hierarchy of sprinters, I think, with Philipsen, Jakobsen and De Maar. You kind of think it's going to be one of those three, but they could share it evenly.
Yes, well, when you look at the form at the moment, and yesterday, I think you could see De Maar, he is definitely coming. He hasn't raced for quite a time now, so it looks like he's getting better as the days go by, and if that's anything to go, well, he will become a little bit stronger, a little bit faster. And we did see yesterday Groupama FDJ got it perfectly right. De Maar did everything by the book, and he just came up against somebody who's that bit faster against him in that final 100 metres, 150 metres. And that's the problem with sprinting. It's such a fine line. You have to get it right all the way, and just one little moment get it wrong, you can get boxed in, and that was the case of some of the big men yesterday.
Well, looking at the top of the trees here, there's nary a fairy's breath disturbing them. It is very still for the time being. We can get vectoring and wind picking up, and that's what we're hoping for a little bit later on. The riders will be hoping exactly the opposite, just to kind of trundle this one and let the sprinters do their work. The last thing they need is nerves at a moment such as this. With such flat land and flat terrain as well, it was always difficult to defend, and as a result you don't really get that many dramatic buildings and edifice knocking along the way as well. So in terms of your tourist guide today, we'll probably be picking out a few ice cream huts. It's a bit like that. Am I tempting you to stay with us? Looking at the bicycle up in the air there, some of the strapping was actually flapping, and if you've got flapping strapping, then you never know, we might have some wind a little bit later on. I'm praying for it, Sean.
Yes, well, I think everybody is praying for it, and more so the organisers here, because the race route designer Fernando Escartin, a pro, back in the day, he was talking there before the race, and they certainly went out and tried to design a route today that was going to be windy, that was going to have echelons, and unfortunately it doesn't seem to have worked out perfectly for them, because the wind direction is not the way it would normally be. It would normally be a tail side wind, which is very dangerous because the race goes so fast, and it's it's really hectic, and yeah, we'll have to wait and see what way the wind will be later on the day. And it's more late in the day. It's from 50 kilometres before the finish. That's when we take a turn, and then at 30 kilometres again. Those points were the real the real important points of the stage today. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it's going to be nervous whatever happened. But unless there's enough of wind there, well, then teams are not going to drive it on as much, and it won't break up as much as we're expecting. And yeah, this town is a one where it's. The last time we came here in 2014, 55 riders in the first group, and then many groups of small riders, and that has been the case many times. We've finished here in Albacete, and yeah, will it be the case today? It's just simmering at the moment, but it's not looking as good as they were expected to be. But still, we might have some very good racing in the final 50-60 kilometres.
Let's certainly hope so. 100 kilometres to go. The gap's 5 minutes and 38. It was they found 2 minutes out there, so our breakaway might be flagging in the heat. Hovering around 34 Celsius. We'll just wait for our wider Eurosport family to come and join us. Bit of gauze on display here with Lascano. Welcome back. Bandages a go-go, only light, you understand, and it looks like that kind of mesh that they put over a bit of road rash to stop the bedclothes sticking to you, and it looks like he's kept it, possibly due to luck or a superstition, who knows. Oya Lascano it is for Cairo Ral. We were just hoving in on there. He's a sprinter, and when he found himself in a break on stage 3 of the Tour of Portugal, he actually got the beating of the pack, finished about 15 seconds ahead of them. So I think the peloton will be wise to that threat, potentially, or at least they will be now we've mentioned it. So Cairo Ral up the road. We've got Sanchez as well, Peleo Sanchez for Burgos, of course. They had two in the break yesterday, didn't do them much good apart from the combativity awards, which I guess is always welcome. But yes, he was 4th in the GC in the Arctic, 14th, I beg your pardon, in the Arctic race, the 21-year-old. But he's a pretty good time trialist, and I think he got top 5 in the national juniors, and indeed kept that going right through the more senior ranks, under 23 for Burgos. And so as a result, he is a man who can park pain. And on a day like this, if you're in the break, that's probably a very good attribute to have. Aspirin is another one who's up there. He's up in the break again, sucker for punishment. He was up there on the run to Burgos, so long flat stage. Aspirin puts his hand up. Well, he's up there again. Good for him. He's a good, decent time trialist as well. Got a top 10 in Valencia, 9th indeed in the Valenciana. So and good at the individual time trial in the Algarve as well. So a couple of time trialists up the road and a sprinter. Put that in your head. 98.5 kilometres to go. Sean, we're hovering around 34 Celsius today, but with the breeze which we hear is actually just starting to pick up a little at the moment. Let's hope it picks up a lot. It's not punishing temperatures. It's not every degree that you go, I think, above sort of 32 has an exponential increase. So 34 at the moment. If it was 38, it would feel a lot hotter. They can cope with this.
Yes, well, I think that 34 degrees on a flat stage is not going to be a problem for those riders. But you can see some riders, they just feel a little bit more and they zip down their jerseys a bit. But it's bearable, and yeah, it's just nice conditions. A little bit cooler, of course. 30 degrees, you can perform better. The riders that do not like the heat, well then that 4 degrees less warmer would be welcome. But yeah, on a flat stage it's not going to be majorly difficult, and the way they're riding along here, not difficult to get bottles, because that is the big problem when you have a windy stage, and if you start racing 100 kilometres out or maybe 150 kilometres out, and we see that in the Tour of France, very difficult to get bottles to the riders, because to get back to the car in the main peloton and then move your way up through the peloton, it just takes a lot of effort. So it is a difficult one, where today, the way they're riding at the moment, there'll be a lot of guys who want to go down for bottles so they get back into the peloton, where when it's going real fast, there's not as many putting up their hand to go back. Everybody's just waiting and holding off to see will it slow down a bit. But yeah, today it's a day that it's not going to be a majorly difficult one for the moment. But again, we'll have to wait and see what the wind conditions and what the directions will throw up later in the day.
It's as you mentioned, as you alluded to, Sean. It's been one of those. It's one of those destinations today that's lived in the memory long. I mean, I love it when we start showing historical pictures, and the pictures are quite grainy. I'm used to seeing Abdou Japarov zib-zabbing all over the place in the sprint. He won back in 92. In 96 it was Jalabert. We had Nasser Bouhanni, of course, in 2014 that we've already mentioned. Oscar Freires had some fun here. There's also been riders who've been hobbled by the course. Valverde is one of those, actually. Alejandro was racing here in 2003 when Pataki won, and I think he was part of a Kelme team that got absolutely brutalised by the crosswind. So, I'm reminded just how long Alejandro Valverde's been with us, but also how long we've been coming to and froing at Albacete, Sean.
Yes, well, it goes back a long time, Albacete. I think the first
so does
time,
Valverde.
well, much further back than that, actually.
Yeah.
You know, in the very, very earlier days of the Vuelta, they were here, and 21 times, they had a finish here. And there's a lot of riders have, bad memories here. If you have that windy conditions, the right direction, well, then it is a guarantee that there'll be somebody would lose time today. And the history books show that there's a lot of riders who were in contention to do something in the GC lost major time here. And the rider who designed the course today, Fernando Escartin, of course, in 96 he lost a stack of time. He lost 7 minutes. He was riding with Kelme also at that time, and he was a rider who was looking for the GC classification, looking like he could make a very good place, but losing 7 minutes here into Albacete, lost all hope on that occasion. So there's a lot of bad memories, and Escartin, I think he's getting back a bit for his big loss. He's just taking it out on the riders today. I was trying to do that.
I think you're right. I think it was almost like he's thinking, well, if I had to put up with it, you're going to put up with it. There's a bit of that, Sean.
Yes,
and it's not uncommon amongst race directors as well. In my day it was tough. You're going to have it tough as well.
Well, race directors, yes, certainly, but for director sportifs, I know some director sportifs that I rode with. They went into the job as DS, and when you had bad weather, they were saying to the riders, well, you don't need your raincoat, it's not that cold. But when they were riding, they were always giving out and moaning about the cold and moaning about the distance. And the moment they changed role and they were behind the wheel of the car, they looked at the racing and looked at it in a totally different way.
There you go. Sean's giving out here about race organisers, but round the coffee table as well, Sean would have said, they've got it easy these days. We're going to hear from Jay Vine, by the way, a man that, I don't know, many of you probably don't know just yet, but I've got a nice feature for you. And don't forget, features are your thing as well as the racing itself, and you want a dedicated cycling channel, then GCN and the app is really where you need to go. Go and have a look at the app. It's free to have a walk around, as you will, and then if you fancy subscribing, of course, you get unrivaled coverage and lots of bonus stuff as well. Jay Vine, a name many of you possibly don't know yet, and that's fair. A 25-year-old from Australia is still very new to the professional cycling world, as he's still a neo-pro within Alpecin-Fenix. A young man, he's got a very special story though. He joined the pro ranks through virtual cycling, winning the Zwift Academy a few months ago.
I raced amateurs for 2 or 3 years in Australia. I was able to get on a continental squad for 2020, but there's just no racing in Australia that's UCI categorised. There's Herald Sun Tour, and that's about it. So when coronavirus shut the world down, I'm 25 years old. I've got no chance of getting selected for a European squad outside of the Zwift Academy program. So incredibly grateful for that opportunity.
Jay Vine doesn't come from nowhere, however. as he was already 5th in the Herald Sun Tour in 2020. This year he already confirmed his potential with a 2nd place in the Green Stage of the Tour of Turkey and placing 2nd overall. This also convinced his management to try him on a Grand Tour, despite, I guess you say, a modicum of Grand Tour experience.
12 months ago I wouldn't have thought I'd be at a Grand Tour, but I mean, even 6 months ago when I first got to Europe, this was my debut World Tour race, so I'm pretty privileged to be selected for this team. You know, we've got amazing guys like Jasper, who are easily one of the fastest guys in the sprint finishes, so we're pretty happy to be part of that squad.
Jay Vine did not experience the smoothest of Grand Tour starts since he crashed on stage 2. Fortunately, didn't cause him any serious damage, and he'll be able to show his potential, I'm sure, in the next few days.
He's a rider with a very big engine, but he still has to learn a lot. We find out the first 2 days how nervous the peloton is in a Grand Tour, different than to a Burgos or another smaller race. And in the Grand Tour everybody is so nervous. Yeah, he must learn a little bit. But the most important, he has a big engine. He wants to learn a lot, and he surprised me every day how good he is and how strong he is. That means that there's a lot of talent all over the world. And yeah, we are very happy that we find him in the Swift Academy. And yeah, like I said, he's also a great person and he wants to learn a lot. And I think we're going to see a few nice things from him here in the Vuelta.
Swift Racing providing the stars of the future. Well, at least some of them. Jay Vine is certainly one. What a story, Sean. Of course, the difference between racing Zwift and racing in reality is that on Zwift you're never that far away from a bit of cake and some coffee.
And no rain.
That is true.
Yeah,
Mind you, we're not going to get much of that here today either.
Yes, sorry, Calvin. It's amazing that the riders, the way they make their way into those positions and into the the big peloton, and now he's in a big 3 week or here and doing a great job, because we've seen him in the last number of days doing a huge amount of work on the front, riding and controlling the breakaway, and he's going to learn a lot by doing that, doing this work and being in a 3 week tour. What an opportunity, for the guy to gain experience and learn something every day.
Yep, absolutely, and that's what it's all about. And you always learn something, no matter what. On a day of racing, nice to get the thumbs up. It's a relaxed atmosphere, Sean. We've seen people chit-chatting. A short while ago we had Caruso and Tratnik was busy shooting the breeze, having a giggle, and then the camera came up as if to say a friendly hello, and straight away Tratnik went, right, shut up, let's not speak anymore. Didn't want any lip reading going. I don't know what they were talking about, but it was clearly something that he didn't want broadcast there, Sean.
Yes, well, it's the norm when the cameras arrive, and when you're having a chat with the riders, or usually it all goes hush, and even when you ask people to stand in for a photograph, they're all chat beforehand, but the moment they stand in the photograph, everybody seems to get serious. It seems to be just the normal, the natural reaction.
Yeah, well, you've got to be careful these days. You never know who's listening. Egan Bernal, little work earlier, we saw him in the Young Riders jersey. It looks very much like a green spotted polka dot jersey. It's got green flash accents to it that almost refer to a polka dot. They're obviously famous for their ham here, Sean. That was a tapas bar that looked like it had actually just served a whole load of customers by the look of that hock of ham, by the look of it.
Yes, well, it does taste well. I'm not sure where it's come from. Is there a bar there?
Definitely.
Yes, I'll agree with you, Carlton.
Hams are wind dried. They're usually high up in the mountains, to be honest. So it's actually come a long way, that one. It did look a bit second hand, I must admit. Looked like he'd been busy whittling away at it. Meanwhile, there are vegetarian options, by the way. Indeed, frittatas and the like. Just telling you. Under 4 minutes now, Sean. If this breakaway starts to lose heart, it might affect the rest of us, because if this slows down any further, it could be a slow bicycle race, this one.
It's going to be an interesting one again, and we've seen it already in this Vuelta, other big tours as well, where the breakaway is just allowed out there with that 5-6 minutes, and then they start riding the sprinters teams, the GC team maybe, and they start slowly to pull it back a long ways from the finish, and that's the case here. The advantage is coming down. But I think they will just slow down a bit here when they get to a point where it's getting dangerous, that they will catch the breakaway. We did see it yesterday, at the immediate sprint, they almost closed them down. Then after that, they just knocked it off again and let them hang out there, and that's what they will try and do. But today, it could be a more complicated one, because if there's the points where it's going to be a risk of, side wind, then there will be a lot of action before that, and that's where 2, 3, 4 minutes could come down rapidly if there's a lot of teams wanting to stay to the front of the peloton.
I think we might have to offer an award to viewers who stay with us all day. Don't know what that award's going to be. Might just be acknowledgement. If you'd like to join the conversation, by the way, and you are being given these details while some of our friends are away on a break, it's at Carlton Kirby, CarltonKirby, or indeed at Sean Kelly. Is it cycling or racing?
Cycling.
Sorry. Sean Kelly Cycling without the G. And Sean will take some of your thoughts as well today. Just less than 89 kilometres of the day remaining. Sure, this intermediate sprint that everyone is talking about, or at least I'm bigging up anyway, that's for sure. Coming with 53 kilometres to go before the end. Just beyond it, there's a big turn. I guess it'll depend on how the wind is blowing, how significant that turn will be.
Yes, well, I think it will be very nervous as we get to that point, because this stage, so much history, the riders will just be naturally very nervous, and everybody will be just playing it careful, make sure you're to the front, and that means there'll be teams trying to stay very much to the front of the peloton. And when you get 3, 4, 5 teams trying to do that, that just automatically pushes up the pace, and I can see that. But when you make the turn then, and the wind condition is not blowing in the direction where it can break the peloton apart, that's when it will start slowing down again. So it's always going to be nervous, but will it continue? That is going to be depend on the wind condition, what direction, and if it's blowing strong enough really to break the peloton, and for riders to keep on riding up front, because there's no point in riding on the front of the group if everybody is hanging in there behind, and you still have most of the peloton staying there. At that point, a team or 2 teams are riding, they will knock it off very quickly. But if they're hearing, oh, this guy is in difficulty, he's in the second echelon on the road, the second group on the road, or the third group on the road, and the Director Sportive will be relaying that, and if that is the case, well, then they will continue up front. But it always depends on what way and how hard the wind, how strong it's blowing.
They've picked out Brian Smith's bodega, or actually I don't know what that means. I might well have just insulted him. Finca, that's what I was thinking of. Anyway, I think the other one might be a house of ill repute, so apologies to Brian for that. Andrew Dinnan and Rob Thomas are saying they're going to be with us all day, Sean, so we've got some hardcore with us today.
Yes, well, it's great to hear that there's people are going to stay with it all day. And of course, we have not only the bike racing, but we also have some nice vistas here, and looking at the chapels and the cathedrals and all that. So hopefully you have your tourist guide out at Carlton.
We just found Brian Smith's finca. Here it is, and we'll be hearing from Brian a little bit later on. He actually does spend time in Spain, I must admit, but too much sometimes, I think. He tans up beautifully, does Brian. Far better than a Scot is really allowed to be honest. I come out I'm a sort of a bluey white, so too much Celtic blood in me, to be honest. Sean Kelly tans up really well. Less of that. Meanwhile,
thank you, Kelton.
Just looking at this lady's billowing parasol here, I don't know whether that's just the wind of the train coming through here, but it appears we've got something more than a little breeze. The odd cordon that I've spotted as well seems that it's actually constant, and we may well have a little bit of wearing wind to contend with. Apparently blowing between 11 and 12 kilometres an hour at the moment, but picking up to around about 18 or 20 later on. We're certainly very much hoping for that. When we get to about 60 kilometres to go, we're nearly there. And in fact, I'm just seeing some movement in the shrubbery here as well, which means that Brian Smith's approaching. We'll have him a little bit later. Meanwhile, it's time for the predictor. Poor old Brian's ears must be burning at the moment. He'll be with us in about 15 or 16 kilometres time. But in the meantime, it's time for a predictor. Who's going to win? On stage 4, nobody got it right with Fabio Jakobsen. Jens Vogt was close at predicting Matthews, but Bike Exchange rider finished 5th. Let's see how they go today.
My prediction for today's stage victory is Arnaud Demet of Groupama FDJ. Today's finish is a little less chaotic than we saw on stage 2. Only 3 roundabouts in the final 5 kilometres. And then at 1 kilometre to go, we have that final right-hand turn. And then as you can see behind me, it's straight as an arrow to the finish line in Albacete. And could Arnaud Demet make it possible that he becomes part of that elusive club, the 103rd rider to do so, to win a stage in every Grand Tour? Only time will tell.
Ce début du Tour d'Espagne fait la part belle aux sprinters.
Jackie Durant says start of the Vuelta, let the sprinters show off. 2 different winners. So I'll pick a third one from stage 5. Obviously, as you can guess, I'm French, so it's going to be Arnaud Demet. But I got my reasons. He steps up. He's been overtaken in Burgos, 2nd in yesterday's stage, so he's moving forward. He didn't race this. With a withdrawal in the Tour de France, he basically says, apologies for that. He says he's improving, so it should be Arnaud Demet in Albacete. Alberto Contador says, for me, today's favourite is a rider that won yesterday. There you are, Fabio Jakobsen. I think the wind might play its role, and we also might have some echelons. And I think that Team De Koenig Quickstep is going to do an amazing job on this terrain. And so Fabio Jakobsen, another stage victory.
There's a very obvious pick for today's stage, and that pick is Fabio Jakobsen. So my prediction for today is Fabio Jakobsen. Some people might say I'm being boring, and in response to that I would say, why change the habit of a lifetime?
Well,
for me today, said Brian Holm, the favourite is a rider that won yesterday, Fabio Jakobsen. I think the wind might play its role, and also we might have some echelons. And I think the Team De Koenig Quickstep are the best at indeed dealing with that. And therein lies the conundrum, Sean. If the wind does blow, who's going to be best at it? There's a few teams here that cope well.
Yes, well, that's always it's a complicated one, with the windy conditions, the echelons, because the best of riders in the echelons, unless you have a good team around you, and if you have a good team around you where you have 3 or 4 riders that are protecting you, well then that is a huge advantage. But if you're a rider that don't have many riders capable of staying with you, you can find yourself getting pushed back. For some reason, it slows down a little bit. There's a flush of riders come up maybe on the right hand side, and you can lose 20 or 30 places. And then if it's a section where there is wind blowing and a team drive it on, you can find yourself in that split and not in that top 30 riders, and you can lose your opportunity to go for a stage victory. So it's a complicated one when it's a windy day, where if it's a normal day where there was no risk of wind at all, well then the sprinters teams would control it real well, look after their sprinter and take it down to a sprint finish, and then it's all about getting it right running into the finish. And that's another day, another debate, because getting it right into the finish, it's always a nervous time for their sprinters and their teams, because you can have the best team in the race, you can have one of the best sprinters, but they can get boxed out at the wrong time. Some team moves up and they crowd you out and you're boxed in, and we did see it yesterday with Philipsen. It happens to the best at some stages during the sprint stages.
It does. Well, getting boxed out, or indeed boxed in, I think Jesper Philipsen yesterday chose the wrong wheel, Sean. He decided to ignore Sasha Modolo, who looked like he was brilliantly placed to lead him in. Modolo just kept on going and could have won it himself, I think, if he'd just pushed on. Look back, Jesper Philipsen had decided to try and battle for the wheel of Arnaud Demar. And that seemed to be a popular place to be, and you're always going to get bumped and bruised, and that's precisely what happened to Jesper Philipsen yesterday.
Well, in hindsight, it's a great thing, Carlton. You can.
I got loads of that.
Well, we all have that, and as a sprinter, and at the teams there, last night they will be looking at it. We did see Aaron Demar looking at the sprint immediately afterwards yesterday, and he said, "Yeah, it was perfect. The team did a perfect job for him. Kept him up there." Brought him to the point where they laid out the sprint at a very fast rate. Armand Demar kicked at 120 or 30 metres, I think it was. It was the exact place where he needs to kick off his sprint, but unfortunately, there was a man faster than him, and he was in the slipstream, and that's the problem. You get everything perfectly right, you feel real good, and you have big confidence, but somebody steps up on the day and they're just that bit better than you, and that bit stronger, that bit faster, and that's something that you come up against during your career many times, the best of the riders, and you can have it right kilometre 0.5 from the finish, and then suddenly there's a number of riders move up with a team, and you find yourself boxed in, and there's nothing you can do. You just haven't got the time to get out, you can't find the space, then it's too late.
What about Jakobsen's strategy yesterday, Sean, of ignoring the intermediate sprint? He'd gone for it and indeed got points and drew level at the top of the green jersey points total. There was 3 riders on 50 points. Philipsen, of course, Jakobsen himself, and Aaron Buru, who'd done such great things picking up points throughout the race. They were all on 50. However, Jakobsen had gone for the intermediate sprint on the day that he lost to Philipsen, and so yesterday decided, even though it was a long way out, about 60 k's out, he decided not to invest in it, and it seemed to play well into his hands. And I wonder whether that will affect whether Jakobsen and Philipsen go for the intermediate today.
Well, I don't believe that the intermediate sprint would have any effect yesterday if he had went for it or not. And when he went for it a number of days ago, I don't think that was it didn't affect his sprint in any way. It was just the way the sprint panned out, and where he was in the sprint. Maybe he had to go the longer way around, and Brian Smith he just showed that. He talked about that. That is, it's just a fraction of a second. Things happen there in the sprint, and you have to do that, make the decision, decide what you're going to do. Sometimes it's the right one and it works out. Sometimes it's a little bit on the wrong side and you get beaten, and that's the fine art of sprinting. It's all down to that final number of kilometres, the final kilometre to be in the right position, and to be in the right position when the sprint kicks off, and you can get a good run at it, and it works some days, and other days it doesn't work as well.
Well, we've got Florian Sénéchal coming up for you in just a few moments' time, but in the meantime I'm just going to do a quick test with Brian Smith in his booth. Brian, are you hearing me okay? Well, I don't think we're hearing Brian, so it may well be that Brian will have to go and hot seat with Sean Kelly. What a pleasant experience that'll be. We'll hear from Florian Sénéchal in about 10 kilometres time. Brian will jump into Sean's booth. In the meantime, here is Florian Sénéchal with his thoughts on the day.
Avec Florian Sénéchal au départ de cette nouvelle étape de la Vuelta.
It's Florian Sénéchal at the start of today's stage. Florian, how did last night go? We saw a lot of joy within the team after the finish from Jakobsen's teammates, but also from the others. We enjoyed the victory. How about yourself? Well, yes, certainly last night, even though the transfer was long, we had dinner at 10:30 and we enjoyed being all together and the debrief, and it was fun. We had a glass of wine to celebrate Fabio's victory, and it was nice. Today is we're ready to do even better. Well, you're confident after the victory. The weather forecast is announcing or suggesting some wind. When are you going to see the tree? How will the team go, and will you enjoy it? Well, it's true that since the start of the Vuelta there's been some open stretches, but with no wind. Today might be windy with some open stretches. So we'll see how it goes, but for sure we will be at the front and we'll be giving it our best. Tell us about the finish. It looks similar to what we had on stage 2. You'll need to be organised to take Fabio Jakobsen there. Alpecin-Fenix did a great job on stage 2. Yeah, we got lost on the stage. On that stage, we know we made a mistake. We talked about it during the debriefing, and we've amended our sprint tactics. And when you start to think about position, and you've just got to be on your marks. Fabio trusts us. We won't stay at the back, and we'll play our cards and give it our best shot in the last 3 kilometres. Shouldn't launch too early, correct? Well, if you have the right rider and if you have strong sprinters, you can. We've got a good team. We prefer to be at the front and not to take any risks, he says. Well, have a good stage, and we wish that everyone does as well. Well, 78.5 kilometres to go then. 2 minutes and 35 is the gap. Yeah, Tour de France, I've watched every day, says Liz Pretty. She's happy, so is the Kerwinator. He's saying that we need to re-guide you to at Sean Kelly CC. Apparently Sean Kelly Cycling is down, but anyway, at Sean Kelly CC if you want to have a word with Sean. It's at Bry Smithy as well, BRISMITHY as well, if you'd like to speak to Brian a little bit later on, or myself, Carlton Kirby. It's just at Carlton Kirby, CARLTONKIRBY. Steve Ellis is here all day as well, good old Steve. And Jonathan Richards just can't stay away. But a few of you just saying, don't tell the boss. Yeah, if you're at the computer, the big giveaway is when you start hooping and hollering at the end. It might take some time for us to actually get there. 77, all the sevens. It's got to be lucky for somebody today. 2 minutes and 21 is our gap. And indeed, the wheelless helicopters here, just operating skis by the looks of things, heading off into the wild blue yonder. Bergdis says, I think Carlton Kirby is trying to finish all of his jokes before the end of the season is over. It's an endless supply, so just wait for the Tour of Britain. Yes, we'll be seeing the Tour of Britain, of course. It does begin on the last day of the Vuelta, so you'll be enjoying others for that great race. However, I will be doing a few evenings, including Warrington the day before the Tour of Britain comes through, so look forward to seeing you there. It'll be fun. I've no idea what they're farming here, but Sean Kelly's probably got an idea about it. Sean, what's going on?
Well, there's a tractor at work here.
I can see that.
The soil. But I'm not sure what the bush or the trees.
I think it was the blessed vine, to be honest, Sean.
Yes,
so yeah,
looks like vines.
Yeah, we'll have a crack at a bit of that later on, hopefully one day. For the time being, 76.8 kilometres. Then we are from home, and the gap's 2 minutes and 21. Brian, are you plugged in? Are you hearing us? Are you multi-channeled, Brian? Nothing from Brian. We wait.
No, I don't think Brian is still connected up for some reason. Apologies. We have a little bit of a problem this today having the connections with the people.
Well, it's just more of you and me, Sean. 76 k's to go. Well, just On a day like today, I guess the concentration becomes a burden. We saw some wheel touches late on yesterday, Sean. It looked in a pretty benign part of the course as well, but it was after the 3 kilometre marker, and it was that pesky situation where the GC teams had tried to hit their marks, and then those who'd done that job were just drifting back off the task of making sure that they reached that safety of the 3 kilometre marker. And it caused a compression at various points within the pack, who were very close together. Nobody wanted to miss out. And down our leader went.
Yes, well, for Ryan Taramay it was unlucky, but lucky also that it was inside the 3 kilometres. First of all, he didn't do any damage. He got some road rash, but nothing serious, because he could have broken something there and be out of the race. And what a disaster that would be for the rider and for the team as well, because this is real important days for them to hold on to this race leader jersey for Intermarché Wanty group, and that happens in the final because everybody is just fighting for position. And we did hear from Taramay there was a rider made a move and he touched off him and down he went. And riders make abrupt movements all the time in the sprints, and you have to be concentrated. And I don't think it's a lack of concentration at that point. It's just that everybody is fighting for position. Nobody gives an inch, and sometimes riders just come out of the wrong end of it. And there's always bumping of shoulders and the little touch at the elbow when it's getting tight for position. All of that goes on in the final run to the line. And it's a sport that there's these dangers involved in it, and you just hope that in the end that everybody gets through. But unfortunately, there's always spills in those finishes, and when you see one of the main men, the race leader, going down, it is it's worrying moments when you see him on the deck there. And I was concerned yesterday when we see him going down that he was going to do some damage.
Me too. 2 minutes and 20. That gap's come down, and as a result you can see that it is it's not the most committed at the moment, and I think there's a danger of the break being caught. We'll, for some of you, take a break, and after which we'll hear from Brian Smith. Time for some sustenance. I do notice as well that we have some high cloud today, and in fact storm clouds brewing, and I'm just wondering whether this suggests we might even have some inclement weather coming to us either late today or tomorrow. Now, when those storm systems do move in, they usually are announced by a cool breeze, and if we get that, then our easterly at the moment, and you can see it's picking up, just look at the flag upon the I believe that is the muck spreader, which is a kind way of saying it. I think we may well have more wind than we actually suspected we may have today if the storm clouds indeed do start to billow. It has that's where they draw up, of course, warm air from underneath, and that's why those clouds just start billowing up to very high, the cathedrals of the sky they call them. If we do have those storms, then it's going to get quite blustery at the end of today, and for that we will be extremely pleased as we just hove over the Parroquia de San Bias, was it? Not quite sure, but anyway, feast your eyes, and in a short while when we rejoin our wider Eurosport family, we'll be feasting on the thoughts of Brian Smith as well. There's a nice little gin terrace there. They look like they've used one of the flying buttresses to access. It's probably not in the notes, but that's my reading of it anyway. Thanks for your company, for those of you sticking with us on today. A day potentially with not too much promise, but believe me, I think by the time we get to our intermediate sprint, and it's coming up in about 18 or so kilometres time, they're going to really pick the pace up. I just wonder if that'll be the killing of the break, to be fair. Might be. Carrying a bit of gauze after a tumble yesterday for Lazcano, as you can see. Still looks a bit raw, and the gauze itself does keep the bedclothes off the wound, and indeed keeps a light piece of lint in place as well. Doesn't want anything to do with the cameras. I think it's because he's drawn the short straw today and is not potentially too happy with the task. Well, it's a longer break than I thought, so Brian, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm waiting for the final. Like yourselves, I'm
I'm hoping for a little bit of the kind of crosswind action. We're looking for it for the last kind of few days, but as Sean said, he knows this part of the world very, very well, and so far the wind hasn't blown strong enough, maybe not in the right direction. But when you look at the peloton, it is kind of moved over to the left-hand side of the road, so if a team does want to take it on, they could probably do some damage, but by the looks of things, nobody wants to take it on at the moment.
They certainly don't. We're just going to join our wider Eurosport family and then witness the change of Kelly to Smith. Welcome back, everybody. Our quick change artists have done their work, and Brian Smith joins us in the commentary position, which is a very good news for those of you who love that dulcet burr from north of the border. And so we swap one burr for another. The wind at the moment being generated by the helicopter, and if you want to see a helicopter, it's a rule of Hollywood, you need 2 helicopters if you want to film a helicopter. And they're showing that they've got 2 helicopters here. A little bit of scorch on the ground. Not the hottest day, Brian. 34 Celsius, and in fact, with the high cloud here, temperatures are actually falling just a little bit, and the suggestion that with the storm clouds gathering here, we may well have something of a breeze, and hard to predict later on.
It is hard to predict, I think yesterday as well. And even a few days ago, when a lot of the teams are coming to the front at certain points, and then nothing happening because, you know, they'd done their homework, they'd realised that was the point to be at the front, but nobody wanted to really kind of take advantage. And just getting back to the weather, I think, you know, everybody will be thankful that it isn't up to the kind of 40 degrees and maybe 40 plus that was predicted in this part of the world, but still hot enough. You have to maintain, you know, that coolness using ice. You can see just the Groupama rider just with ice in his hand there. So it's fairly hot, and you have to keep that nutrition flowing, drinking enough, eating enough. And it's in these conditions that you don't really kind of feel like eating, but you have to because you're eating for the stages still to come.
Brian, there was questions that were issued to Egan Bernal yesterday as to his thoughts on you talking about keeping energy where it needs to be. Richard Carapaz suffered the bonk the other day and fed very, very late as well, with some fines issued, 20-second penalty and the like. But the Olympic champion looked out of sorts, and Bernal was asked, does that mean that you're number one status? It's those pesky journalists again. Of which he was very, very forthright in his answer, and basically just said absolutely not. That Carapaz's time and his deficit overall is not too bad, and in a race like this, coming in the part of the season where it does where there's a lot of tired legs, you don't know how other riders are going to be affected, and indeed plenty of time for Carapaz to get back into this one. But team strategy will certainly play a part, and you've got to be careful every single day, and as you say, the feed is very, very important, as Richard Carapaz found to his cost.
Yeah, indeed, and you know, had to pay for it as well. But you know, looking at it, I think the best options for Team Ineos and any other team, we have to look at Lopez and Mas for Movistar as well. It's better to have options in the general classification. You never know what's going to happen. We even saw yesterday the leader crashing, and you know, that could have been at that speed, you know, a broken bone, but fortunately it was just a little bit of a scrape to his leg, and you never know. I would still say that from where I'm sitting, that Roglic with the time trial does look as if he's in really good form, and I think they'll be disappointed that Sepp Kuss and Steven Kruijswijk have moved down the general classification, because we talk about this all the time about numbers. I wouldn't discount Carapaz. He's still there, he's a fighter, as we know. He'll probably ride into this race. He's had a really tough couple of months, and I think, you know, winning in the Olympics and, you know, having to do maybe some social things afterwards, some PR afterwards, and you know, he's still in kind of cloud nine, and you know, with the jet lag and various other things that he's had to contend with, I think, you know, the second to third week he'll start to kind of shine a bit, so they'll want to try and keep him as high up in the general classification as possible. But yeah, I think from the Pinco Blanco climb that Adam Yates looked really good, and if it wasn't for that strong headwind to the finish, I think that Adam Yates may have gained some time back in the general classification.
Well, we're going to hear a few more chats from the top of the day in a short while. Here's Carapaz. Just having a little chat. Looks like he's talking about his breathing, to be honest. Not quite sure what the issue is. I don't think allergies at this time of year, Brian.
No, it is a concern, and it does look as if he's he's looking for a little bit of help. Not too sure what that help is, but yeah, he's not looking overly happy with something. That's something, we're only kind of speculating or guessing at the moment, but we'll see how this develops. But yeah, I'm not too sure what the situation with the Carapaz in there, but it's still a concern for him.
Yeah, it is. We'll keep an eye on it and tell you what we know when we know. This is Sebastian Milano, I think.
So we are here with Juan Sebastian Milano, sprinter obviously of Team UA. Juan Sebastian, ¿qué esperas de hoy?
So what are you expecting from today's stage? Well, I think that today was a very good stage for me. He's talking about yesterday, of course. Really technical arrival. I like that a lot. I think that I can handle different kinds of curves. So does my team. And so going forward will also be amazing. I've got a great lead-out train. If yesterday we've been losing ourselves just a little bit, we're eager to do well in the sprint for Matteo Trentin. But today is another day. So let's hope that we can do it well. You afraid of the wind? Yeah, a little bit, he says. The weather forecast announced some wind, and there's an open area. So far, not much wind, but that can change at any time. And I think that they'll be nervous. So let's hope that we can be at the front and be careful for any attack. How do you determine if it's you or Trentin? Well, there's some arrivals that have second category climbs, and they can get he can have the sprint, and we'll have some for Matteo, some for me. So yeah, the dead flat ones will be for me. We'll just be talking about it already, of course, and it's something that we have a good balance within the team. So I don't mind helping Trentin, and he doesn't mind helping me. So we'll just save ourselves for each other, and indeed for those days when we're expected to go forward. That's how relaxed our team is. Well, how nice is that, Brian? No internecine rivalry between Trentin and indeed Milano. We saw as well that when Trentin led in Milano, it was brilliant. Milano just couldn't quite deliver. He looked so fast, Trentin, on stage 2. And we thought, well, when this trick changes around, how will it pan out? And Milano was exceptional in his delivery of Trentin yesterday. Trentin himself gets boxed in and finished in 8th place. So each leading the other has done a terrific job. It's just that the chosen sprinter has not been able to deliver. That might change.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they have stronger sprinters in the race, but it's nice to see that two teammates, I think, working for the first time in a Grand Tour together, can swap it around, and that type of honesty. It's not as if, this is our sprinter, this is the rider we're going to ride for in every sprint. But the fact it's swapping it around, and I don't think the riders mind that too much, because it means the kind of pressure is off them a little bit, although they have to do a job in the lead out, but the pressure is off to deliver a result at the end. And I think Milano sprinted well in the first sprint stage, which was taken by Philipsen. I still don't understand how they managed to sprint down the middle of the road. You don't often see that. Normally they go to one side of the road or the other side of the road, so maybe that tactic wasn't right. And we've seen Milano try to help Gaviria in the Giro d'Italia, and he got it wrong on so many occasions. And it's sometimes, and I think we have to kind of highlight this. We've seen the way that Morkau works with Sam Bennett, and this year in Tour de France with Mark Cavendish, and we've got Sinkeldam with Arnaud Demar, and we can rhyme off a few others. It's not easy putting kind of 2 riders or 3 riders together and gelling them, and they have to get to know each other and get to know how they ride. One thing that the teams tend to do is have them share a room with each other so that they can discuss these things and how they're going to ride. And I think that's important, but also it's important that, like you say, it's relaxed in a team. They respect each other. They're willing to give 100% for each other. There's no animosity. It's not like Trentin's spitting feathers the other day because he wanted to sprint. It's nice to have that dynamic.
Very much so. I think it's a balance that has to be struck. Notably, of course, De Koenig decided that they couldn't cope with that dynamic when it was Bennett versus Cavendish. It was either going to be one or the other, and when Sam couldn't recover from his knee injury, of course that's when the door opened for Mark Cavendish famously. But I was speculating a little bit earlier on as to where Mark might be next year now that Jakobsen's hitting his stride. Brian, your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think he'll want to stay there. He seems at home, and I think it will do himself and Jakobsen if Mark Cavendish stayed with the wildcard.
Now then, in about 14 kilometres time, we have our intermediate sprint. Now, I don't think there's any desire to catch the breakaway at this point. However, you can see with some of the twists and turns here that on some of the more exposed sections, we've seen some billowing cordons, and for that we are grateful. Once we get through the intermediate sprint, about 1,800 metres beyond it, there's a big turn, and I think that some teams might actually just want to account for that turn anyway, just in case. We saw a lot of very careful riding, can I put it that way, Brian, with the threat of some crosswinds earlier in this race. Crosswinds that didn't materialise on the run to Burgos. How quickly can the wind change in this part of the world?
It can change. At the moment, you know, you're looking at the trees.
They're dead, aren't they?
Yeah, it doesn't look as if it is. I don't know how we can change that, Carlton. Do you know anybody upstairs that you can give them a phone?
I'll have a quick word on bended knee. As it stands at the moment, this might be a bit of a parade until the last 20 k's when we start to pick up the pace. Let us wait and see. Looks like we've got a bull ring at the bottom left, which looks disused. I'm quite pleased about that. And of course, one of Brian's many thinkers here that he's a landowner, as you know, of some note, in Minya. I don't know what that means in Scots, but it's probably something along the lines of, no, you can't have that. 65.3 kilometres from Brian and I are linked by a little monitor, by the way, so I can see his rise.
It's canny. You can't have that.
All right, okay. That's a phrase I'm very used to hearing. I should know that. 2 minutes and 45 is what we got. I mean, that's probably one of the least distinct tourist attractions that you're probably ever likely to see. I can't see anyone queuing up for a ticket for that one. Meanwhile, there are grey clouds up ahead, Brian. Are we going to have some rain? Maybe tonight, I guess, but you never know.
I think it's my hair shining on the screen for you here as we look at each other. But yeah, there's no indication of rain later. The storm is in this area. You know, we're hoping that it will hit the race, and you know, all hell will break loose. Not that the riders will be wishing for that. They'll be cursing if they listen to this back, of course. But yeah, it's one of these things when you design a route, you have to go from A to B, and you know, a lot of the regions pay decent enough of money to have a Vuelta stage come through their region, and you know, some of the regions are, I don't know, a lot prettier than maybe this type of region. But then again, the way my form is going, I'd be loving to ride in this part of the world.
You can see there's a great big cloud that is behind us, and I don't know whether that's a little drop of moisture on the helicam here or whether it's just a recently expired insect. I think it's probably the former. But yeah, so there are some drips and spits of rain in certain parts, but it looks like we're heading away from any of that mild trauma, I guess you might say. And just look at this road, Brian. I mean, if somebody just got a ruler out and went, yeah, we're going from here to there, that would be your it's not the most complex design, let's put it that way.
No, it's one of these stages that I think when the organisers were looking at this, and this is supposed to be a kind of windy sprinters stage, and in the history of the event, and you know, when Sean won here, he was telling the story just before we came on air. It sounded traumatic the way that this race can go. It opens up like we see here. If the wind was blowing in the right direction, then we would see echelons, we would see carnage, and you know, I think that's what we want to see as fans of the sport. We want to see, you know, entertaining racing, but I think by the looks of things, this could go into the last kind of 20 kilometres, maybe 30 kilometres, and then we'll start to see potentially the wind picking up, and maybe someone taking it on, and but not for the moment. So we've got plenty of time for any discussions.
Thanks, Brian. Like anything you'd like to talk about, you at home. Brian's famous paella recipe, we still haven't heard that, or Sean, so it's a slight variation in the two actually. One involves a nip of something special. We'll leave that to your imagination.
Sean's has got potato in it.
Has it?
Yeah. That's all I'm giving away.
63, just over kilometres to go. Shadows resharpening, so the clouds that I was worried about are now behind us. We're riding away from them. In terms of dealing with these sprints, it's been the most sprint-friendly Vuelta for quite a few years. I mean, it put the frighteners on a lot of quick men in the past, Brian. I think Mark Cavendish earlier on in his career said, "I'm not coming back here."
I think he'd have liked this start to the race.
Too.
It would have given him an opportunity here, but it's each to their own. And when the race organisers go through the routes, and I was listening to Sean. Normally, there's a westerly wind blowing, and the westerly wind was blowing today. Then it would be in echelons, different groups, and it would be a lot harder stage. And yet on the day, you can't predict the weather. But it's the sprints have been good. There's not been any incidents to really kind of talk about. They've been hard fought. I think now we have a kind of pecking order with Philipsen, Arnaud Démare and Jakobsen, and you do need a little bit of luck as well. We heard from Jakobsen in the first sprint that he was out of position, got brought up, and his legs were a little bit big, and he had to go the longer way around with Philipsen going straight to the line, and that makes a big difference. It's the small decisions. And then yesterday, by the looks of things, Démare and his team Groupama, I think they didn't do anything wrong. It's just a pity that for Démare that is that Jakobsen found the wheel of Démare in the last 125 metres. We're just looking at here, just look at the wind directions. We saw earlier on coming up from the southwest in the top of the left hand page. But as we move into the day, it goes to the south. That's the Burgos BH team. So, everybody's looking at the wind. So earlier on, it was a little bit more of a crosswind, but obviously too far to the finish for anything to happen. Nobody really wanted to take it on that far out. But as we head in towards the finish from the barracks in towards the finish there in the last kind of 20 kilometres, it is coming from the south, and that would be a complete crosswind from the right hand side. So they're looking at it. The cameras are aware of that situation as well. But looking at Arnaud Démare, it was just a pity for Démare that Jakobsen was stronger than him in the final. I think if I was to criticise Démare, I think he went a little bit too early. If he'd have left it a little bit later, but I think Jakobsen surprised himself. I think he admitted that he wasn't maybe thinking that he'd be able to pass Démare in the last 100 metres, but he did. And it's just one day you could be in the perfect position, like yesterday Philipsen, perfect position, and then he got squeezed a little bit by Michael Matthews and Meus, and then he lost his momentum, and there's no coming back in an uphill sprint like that in the last 125 metres. So, but then in the first sprint, Démare got out of sorts. He wasn't with his team, made an effort to get up there, and then was kind of taken out by one of his lead-out man. So I think everything has to be perfect to win a stage here, and you can't afford to have any kind of mishaps within the last 1 kilometre. And today will be exactly the same.
I think so. Let's see how it pans out. I'm kind of believing in Arnaud Démare today, and to be honest, I wouldn't have thought I would be saying that at the beginning of this race. Such was his unfortunate Tour de France. But hey, lack of racing, and he's the coming man, as Jackie Durand said. So yeah, I think he'll go well today. In fact, we're having the predictor again. I think it's just our graphic, to be honest. We've heard from them all. Yeah, when we get this turn. And in fact, we're nearly there for these guys. And as you can see, Groupama are just helping with the chase at the moment. But I think it's possibly that they want to be in a decent place just in case anything crazy happens in a few moments' time. This is how it stacks up. Démare for Jackie. And indeed, Jakobsen gets a 3-2 vote here. between the pair of them, everyone seems to have forgotten about Jesper Philipsen. Your thoughts, Brian?
It normally happens when you finish 9th the day before. You're soon forgotten. He did a great sprint in the first sprint stage, first road stage, and won that. He was there. I just think that they got it a little bit wrong yesterday before the stage. That they said that they'd looked at the finish, it was a little bit technical, and they wanted to be at the front with about 1.2 to go.
60 to go is how we stack at the moment, and so we're about 8k, so a little bit less than that, 7 to our intermediate sprint. A little bit of chit chat still going on, no stress. I think it's because there's a lack of wind for the time being. I hope it blows up and indeed blows a little bit of action into the day. I guess it's something you just can't predict. I don't think anyone would have thought we'd have had what I occasionally call a vertical feather day. When you drop one, it just goes straight down. There seems nary a breath of wind at the moment. There are some teams that will want to get something out today, but how do you stand up to the sprinters and indeed those who are good at facing echelons if it's not really your bag or you don't have that kind of strength? It's a question of holding on for what small crumbs might come your way, and occasionally they do. I have to say quietly, amongst friends, I actually did think that Magnus Cort would go very well yesterday, and he got a podium, so it was nice bragging rights for me. Also got me a nice curry, I can tell you that much. So yeah, surprises today, they can come. From what quarter, we are not certain at the moment, but watch out for Aberasturi, who will keep himself in a nice position for Cairo Ral. And why not Matthews as well, or indeed one of the UAE boys? We'll see. Occasionally, Brian, you get a lead-out man who's so strong, you kind of just have to doff your cap occasionally and go with him. Sasha Modolo yesterday looked outstanding, and so much so, he drove too quickly away from Jesper Philipsen, who doesn't seem to be trusting his train at the moment. He certainly didn't yesterday. He was boxing for the back wheel of Arnaud Demar. What about letting Modolo have a go?
Maybe a few years ago, not now. I don't think Modulo's quite there now. It was a good lead out. It's just a pity that Philipsen, it's easy for us to look back. I think Philipsen is the sort of rider that's, like you say, doesn't totally believe on his own team to deliver him perfectly. And looking at the first sprint, he was on his lead-out man's wheel and decided to jump onto the wheel of Michael Matthews, and that brought him the fruits of the win. But yesterday he never went with Modulo when he went and decided to go with Demar, which in the end I think was the best wheel, but unfortunately others thought that too, and everybody else battled with it. So the situation now is making the decisions at the right time, getting yourself in the right place at the right time, and very split decisions when you're attacking a sprinter that's 60 kilometres, 70 kilometres an hour. That makes a big difference.
Well, it sounds like our second booth is operational. It's busy having some mic scratching, so don't worry, the hamsters haven't escaped. For those of you who are listening in. And so the good news is that we will be joined shortly by Sherry Pridham, which is rather nice. So as soon as we have Sherry installed, then we will have a chat. It's great to hear DS's perspective on how things are panning out today. In fact, we're on a commercial break at the moment. So Sherry, are you with us? 2 minutes apparently. We'll look to it. 2 minutes 49. We are restrung, Brian, so back to as we were in terms of our battle plan today. So I've got you for another 12Ks, which is good news. So your thoughts about what you'd be saying to your principals today on the approach?
My principles?
I think it's one of these... talk about your principles, Brian.
Yeah. It's one of these sprints where it's fairly straight. I think the last corner is about 1 kilometre to go, just inside 1 kilometre to go, so it's fairly straight. But it's just the pinch points before. I think it could be like a similar sprint to the second stage. You really have to be attentive because there is roundabouts in the way in, some pinch points and things like that, and let's hope we don't get the crash we did on that stage.
Welcome back, everybody. 57 kilometres to go. You'll be pleased to know that we've resolved our little technical gremlins, and we have Sherry Prudham coming to join us. Very warm welcome to you. It's nice to have you on board.
Thank you, Colton. It seems like only yesterday I was sat in the booth, and I'm pleased to join you again.
Oh, it's lovely. And as well, I mean, your perspective is always is more than welcome. But in particular, I don't want to dwell in 2006 when you had your own bump, as it were, which of course hampered you and your career as a pro cyclist. You've had a great career since then, of course, in the world of cycling. But it must have resonated very strongly with you, Jakobsen's win yesterday.
Yeah, I think when you, as a bike rider, you have a bad accident, you always think you're invincible, and the way you want to come back is to come back better and stronger. But I think it all depends on the time of the career or the age of you are at the time in your career, and whether you've got that fight and that inclination or even that desire, to come back. So Jakobsen he's a young gun. He's determined to put the crash behind him. So no, it's great to see him back where he belongs and winning bike races.
Well, it's great as well. He's still good at what he does, which is a blessing for us, and he's the majority favourite for today, which is fantastic. In terms of yourself, you of course plied your trade in the cycling world, and now of course principal at Israel Startup Nation. What about the boys? How on earth do you motivate a team on a day like this when there are favourites for the day but are clearly lying elsewhere?
Well, when you've got sprinters, you clearly have to work with your sprint coaches and the riders that they know their positions, their lead out, when they're going to take up, which kilometre they're going to drop out, and the formation is there. So it's really just keeping the boys informed, probably with 10Ks to go, give them the last instruction in terms of the line out and the formation that they're going to take up into the final corner, particularly today at 1K to go. So you just give them a bit of a hint and just remind them if there's any wind, which we haven't had today, unfortunately, and then you just leave them to it.
I've still got my fingers crossed we're going to get some, to be honest. The way that the shadows have disappeared here, there are weather systems in the area. As soon as you get that, you get swirling winds around it, and it's hard to read which direction they come. We had earlier on today a southwester, and it's kind of moved, if you will, anti-clockwise to a southeasterly just for the time being. I find myself, Brian, just looking for flags, quite frankly, as an indication of what we're doing. Not the one on the motorcycle, before you cheekily point that out. But yeah, at the side of the road we look for clues almost constantly, and for the time being there are none, and it doesn't look like we've got a great deal of urgency heading for this intermediate either.
No, I think one of the tricks I used to do is just lick my finger and put it outside the car window. It was always a headwind, but
thanks, Brian.
I'll give you that one. But yeah, it's one of these situations where we're riding in the same direction at the moment until we get to the sprint. We then turn right and head south, and after quite a few kilometres we turn left and start heading in towards the finish. And I think for anybody, you have to be prepared, and you never know what the wind is going to do, whether it's going to pick up, and as you said, it's kind of swung round a little bit. But just going back to what you're talking about with Cherry, we had in the first sprint stage that crash which took out Guarnieri, and that may have upset a team. So as well as giving the riders the plan beforehand, kind of reminding them, just refreshing their memory with about 10 kilometres to go, because the last thing you really want to do is talk during the last 10 kilometres, because that's when it gets a little bit frantic. That's when the riders get on the radio. And if you remember the Jakobsen interview, where because of the crash and the team radio was giving information out, they weren't able to communicate with each other, they lost each other, and that's the difference between winning and losing sometimes. And so in the last 10 kilometres, normally in a team like that, you try and keep it as quiet as possible in the race radio. You allow the riders to communicate with each other, because it does get noisy. There is a lot of, if you're in the centre of a bunch in a sprint, there's a lot of shouting. Everybody's shouting left, right, and it gets rather chaotic. Put together the helicopter above and things like that. It's really chaotic, and then in that instance, you lose a rider. You have to be able to adapt, and I think we've said all along. We see that the team of Deconic Quickstep, whether they train for it or not, it's something that they really adapt to very, very quickly. They take up the reins of the riders that have fallen away, maybe out of position, and it's something that you have to learn quickly to be versatile within a team.
I guess as well, all teams have their specialisms, and if you have a team that if you have a team that is, how can I say this politely, looking for crumbs from the top table on a sprinting day such as today, I guess adaptability is part of it, and just being there, Cherry, if opportunities do come your way. We saw one presented itself yesterday to Magnus Cort, who did a great job to get on the podium. There's always that possibility.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go on instinct, and that's what sprinting is all about. You have to have confidence in your lead-out train, and particularly your last man. And sometimes in the chaos in the last kilometre, you do lose your wheel, and that generally goes for teams maybe that haven't got a full committed train, maybe down to crash or injury, or even down to selection of a particular team. But the communication is there. Like Brian said, we generally stop communicating with the riders and let them crack on, if you like, with that last 10k, so that they can communicate with themselves. I think the only time that myself as a sports director would come in is just to warn them about right side roundabout. So we give very short, brief information, left side, right side, left turn, and you keep it very, very short, and just let them get on with the job at hand.
Well, here's a job at hand right now, which is the intermediate sprint, and it looks like Lascano is going to get there. You'd expect that. He is the sprinter of this trio. The other two are reasonable time trialists. A little fist pump there offered up by Sanchez, as if to say, sorry mate, I just had to challenge you for it anyway. But of the skill sets that these guys possess from our breakaway, the best sprinter by a margin is Oli Lozcano, and he's done a job. There'll be some bonus money as well coming. He won't be too concerned about the time bonuses. Lozcano 21 minutes and 34 down. He's been down as well, as you can see. He's carrying a few injuries. Just like scuffs, really, road rash. Sanchez is 10 minutes and 21 down from in the plum-coloured of Burgos BH, and Asperin is 20 minutes and 4 seconds down. So they were none of them. That was almost the perfect breakaway to go up the road today. Calmed everyone down. We've got calm at the moment, Jerry, but it's all going to turn into a storm on Friday. But we still have these flat days to deal with before we get there. Is there a danger of a lack of focus? How do you keep people motivated and just making sure that they're dialed in for days like this and indeed the days to come?
Yeah, the teams are motivated. The riders are clearly motivated. After all, it is, it's the last Grand Tour, and often it's, that the riders are maybe looking for re-signing for the next year, or riders might even be looking for contracts. So it's important that you keep everybody on the same page and in focus for what is arriving on that particular stage. So it's not a case of them being unfocused. It's just get the job done.
Brian, as well, there's a lot of distractions at this time of year. I noticed that all the teams are in colour order at the moment, just in case anyone tries something on this turn that we've got after the sprint line at 1,800 metres beyond. It's through town here, and once we get exposed again, can't really see it's going to have a massive impact today, but what impact we have got is that we've got a compression of the peloton again on narrow roads, and that carries its own dangers, as we saw yesterday.
It does, but I think the sprint might be unfolding for the minor places now. We are expecting
Here we go.
A little bit of a challenge here, and
13
it's
and
just
10
unfolding
points
for Groupama.
Yeah, and they mean business as well. Let's have a look. Oh, so does Philipsen. Well, there you are. 13 and 10 points still available once the three riders had gone through, and so it was busy. Didn't see much of it, unfortunately. The heads up was very, very late coming to us with 50 Ks to go for those out front. We'll get confirmation of how that finished. So yet again, Brian, Jakobsen not deciding to contend it.
No, no real surprise, isn't it? I think he possibly made a slight mistake. Okay, it was good to test his legs out in the second stage, but I think he's learned his lesson, that he's just going to go all in for the final sprint. But interestingly there, Philipsen just beating Demar. I know they weren't, flat out, but it's still points towards that competition, and it does look as if, we have got a challenge for that green jersey. I know that it's on the shoulders of Jakobsen, and he's got a good buffer at the moment, but Demar and Philipsen, they'll fight for that pretty much the whole way, and it's nice to see that they're challenging in the intermediates as well as the finishing sprints.
Certainly are, which is good. Here is the pack, and we're still waiting for this big turn, and at the moment they're just easing up just in case they almost accidentally catch the break. It can be a thankless place to be, Cherie, if you're in a breakaway on a day like today, and especially when the only action point of the day is the intermediate sprint that they've already been through. How do you maintain the will of somebody that you've told to get up the road and just sit there?
Well, I think for some of the Pro Conti, was as we call it, the smaller teams, the publicity that these boys get, to showcase their sponsors is almost as important as winning the stage for some of the smaller teams, and that's exactly what we can see here. So they'll enjoy the day out. It's almost a celebration within itself, when you get a rider, particularly if you've got a young rider out in the breakaway. It's it's a privilege for that rider to be there, a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's great to see. Interesting as well to hear at the beginning of the day, we had a lovely interview, of course, with Ryan Tarancón, just saying that how much they had welcomed engaging in the chase yesterday. It was down to them, but they loved lining out as a team. To honour the jersey, and I can imagine the unfamiliar territory that Intermarché Wanty found themselves. Cherie, is a special day for them. They've had another one today, of course.
Yeah, to have any leaders jersey in any tour, in particular a Grand Tour, is fantastic for any team, and they'd be happy with that. I think thankfully they just about got their man into that 3K position, but he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and unfortunately had that small crash.
Here's your points assembly that you've just seen. Jesper Philipsen is 19 points down on Fabio Jakobsen, who's most people's pick for the day today. Let us wait and see. Looks like the pit of bone meal here has been dug up and spread upon the fields. Sean Kelly could confirm that to us, and indeed he'll be back in the booth a little later on in our run for the line today. The sun's disappeared for a large part of the landscape here. I'm still hoping. I think the fluttering of the leaves of the vines here is probably coming from the helicopter. Meanwhile, Arnaud Demar, he's gradually, slowly but surely, getting better and better. Can he move one step further ahead of everybody else, which will give him a win today? Let's find out what his thoughts are.
Deuxième hier, il visera la victoire aujourd'hui. Arnaud Demar sur cette
second yesterday, today he'll be eager to win. Arnaud Demar on this stage on the Vuelta. We looked at the sprint after the arrival. You've seen it again with the team. What do you think? Well, we looked at the statistics of the teams and in terms of watts per hour, and it was a good sprint. We've no regrets on how it went yesterday. Jakobsen was stronger than me. That's as simple as it is. If it was him, if I was him, I would have won the same way. I have no regrets because the team did a great job, and that's what matters.
Aujourd'hui, on va garder la même organisation.
Well, today you'll stick with the same organisation within the team. Jakob has struggled a little bit to catch the Alpecin rider yesterday. So is it going to be the same battle plan? Well, yes, we need to trust Jacopo Guarnieri. I won't be. It won't be slightly uphill in today's finish, so it'll be fast. We have Romain Sinkeldam as well. That's very strong. But it's interesting to have Jacopo as our lead-out man as well. Well, you're going to be trying to be at the front, not to get tricked as you were. You can fall a bit behind. Cheeky question, but anyway. Well, that's what we did yesterday. We needed to be at the front. We found out we were better at the front, and so yeah, just put our noses out front and see how it goes, and we'll see if we can make it happen. I guess, Brian, you've got to have those plans in place. You've got to have the adaptability to shred them as well. But it looks like with our sort of highway approach today, the last 900 metres, it's going to be straight road time, and that may well play into the hands of Arnaud Démare. It depends on what's going on behind him, of course.
Exactly that, and I like his honesty. He was beaten by a stronger rider, and there's nothing he could do about it. Okay, when Alpecin-Fenix kind of lit it up a little bit, Guarnieri maybe didn't kind of close as quick, but everything has to be right at the right time for everybody. But what I have noticed now is the team of Jumbo-Visma have moved up towards the front. They've moved Roglic up there. Movistar have moved up towards the front. So you can see Groupama in the middle. Over on the far side, you can see Astana, Ineos. So they must have been told that, with the change of direction, get yourselves to the front, and that's what we're starting to see. So we're starting to see a slight change in anticipation to what is potentially not far up the road. And you've got to remember that there is a scout car in front. Well, most of the teams, not all the teams have that, but most of the teams have a scout car. They'll relay that information back to the team car. That information will go to the rider, so they must know something that could happen, and so it's all hands to the pump, move to the front and stay there, and that's where we're seeing some colour team blocking towards the front now.
We are, and indeed that's going to be the case for about the next 15 kilometres. It'll take us down to 30 to go, and we take a big turn at Barax. In fact, just a little bit before then, with 31.6 kilometres remaining. So, clearly the teams are wary. Sure, it's easy to just fall back on the way the day has been so far and not realise that there could be a great deal of change up ahead of us. And it's potential for nerves when you're constantly reminding riders of their duty, but you've got to do it.
Yeah, every sports director now will be putting some pressure on the teams, to make sure that their key man, the target man for the day, will be up in a good position. So you'll find a lot of pressure now, particularly when that turn does come up at kilometre 30. So yeah, it does start to get a bit nervous.
Does. We're going to be joined by Sean Kelly in a short while. You'll have Brian Smith up on the sofa, along with yourself, Thierry, at the end of today. How many days are you with us, by the way? Remind everybody.
I'm here with you, Colton, until Friday.
Fantastic. Well, including Friday, I hope, because it's going to get very lumpy and bumpy then.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to a bit of action. See where we stand with some of the GC riders. We can start to tell how the shape of this Vuelta at least is going to pan out.
Yeah, exactly. And here is the wind. It's finally come to us, Sherry. This is exactly what we wanted. It's blowing properly, and that's why the teams have got themselves into colour order. And I guess remaining vigilant is what this is all about.
Yeah, we're going to approach that turn now. Just looking at some of the stats here, it's not as windy as we'd all like it to be, just to see those echelons forming, but certainly could cause, if you've got one or two committed teams who want to create a bit of bit of trouble for the sprinters, then this is a point at kilometre 30 where that's going to happen.
Minute and 55 for the breakaway. Now, if we do get to 30 to go, I wouldn't be surprised if we get an early take almost by accident if the pace starts to pick up. And as you look at the peloton at the moment, this is the wheel touch danger that we've got at the moment. It's the same deal that we had yesterday, almost as wide as it is long at the moment, and that carries its own problems, Sherry.
Yeah, like we say, you know, it's all about being attentive, and that compression that you have, that washing machine, that effect that you have, is something that we will see when the wind starts to blow.
Well, if you're out of position now, it's difficult almost to get back in it, but almost automatically, Ineos Grenadiers, aware of the danger and just getting themselves into a great position. In fact, Carapaz it is that's on the radio at the moment. Easy to pick out with his golden fronted helmet. It's a shame they didn't extend that to the back of it, to be honest, like Greg Van Avermaet. That would have helped. But look at the rise here, and you can see the flag upon its what looks like a roach pole on the caravan here, mobile caravan, is describing the wind to us almost perfectly. It couldn't be better if it was a windsock at an airport, and it's billowing just at the crest. Now, this is before the turn, don't forget. There's a couple of roundabouts for us to take. That'll almost come as a geological phenomena in these parts. And you can see the wind farm as well is busy over to the right-hand side of your screen. You can take all of these cues. But one thing it does mean is that we do have a little bit of wind, and for that we are grateful, picking up from about 11 kilometres an hour to about 18. Which means, as we welcome Sean Kelly back into the commentary position, that we may have some drama in about 12 kilometres time, Sean, when we take this turn.
Yes, it is possible, and you know, this is the area where part of the stage, from my remembrance of these stages into Albacete, the early part of the day is okay, but when you get in that 30 kilometres, possibly a bit further out, it can get very windy, and it just seems to blow that bit more out here, and we can see it is starting to blow, and we can see the way the riders are riding here up front. The flag, of course, the Belgian flag there was blowing strongly, so that tells, yeah, there is quite a bit of wind there. And when you get into the final, when they really want to push it on, the teams, you know, they will take it up at 30 kilometres to go. They know they can continue on for that distance and do damage. And yeah, this is going to be nervous times. And as you've been talking there, a lot of teams just waiting, be in the front and be ready.
Well, being in the front and being ready is what their DSs will be screaming at them potentially. I think everyone kind of knows it. They've got into colour order almost automatically. Some teams, of course, better at managing this than others. And you would expect a Koenig Quickstep to have fewer worries than others if it does start to blow a hoolie. We'll find that out in about 8 kilometres time. The turn, by the way, when it comes, apparently, is at 31.6 to go. So, in fact, there we are, 10 Ks remaining. And there will be some nerves out there. Nobody wants to take a tumble. We've already, of course, had one rider have to depart from the race, which is Alexander Cataford, after the opening stage. And that must have come as a blow, Cherie.
Yeah, I'm Alex Cataford's referent DS, so you know it was really disappointing and real bad luck for Alex, you know, to have that crash, and unfortunately it was a collarbone break on the end of his collarbone near his shoulder, so it's not an easy fix. He's going in for surgery on Friday, so you know, I'd like to wish him well and obviously best wishes for his recovery.
Yeah, it's not a nice thing, and when it's a partial dislocation as well, that makes it ever more complex, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, you know, he's a strong lad mentally, and he'll come back. He'll come back fighting fit from this.
Yeah, there are no soft landings in cycling. Even the ones into what looks like a well-grassed ditch can hurt. Look at the storm clouds blowing up here, and this bodes well. It might be overnight rain, you never know, but they usually announce a bit of a breeze, and thankfully that's what we've got. So the wind farms are busy offering up some applause to us today, and hopefully we will as well to the day's winner. And guess what? On the nose, it has to be De Koenig. They want to marshal this all the way in. Nerves just starting to fray here. Sean, this is what the day needed. Thank goodness we've got some wind.
Yes, well, we definitely need it because you know, it was starting to really get a bit of a long drawn-out stage here.
What, my farming tips weren't keeping you entertained?
No, not good enough to keep my entertainment high. But yeah, we need this 30 kilometres. When we turn here, just outside the 30 kilometres to go, if you know the wind is blowing there in the direction that it's going to cause the race to be nervous, and you can see it is already, you know, starting to wind up here at this point. So they know this turn it could be vital, and yeah, hopefully the wind will be a bit in the direction that it will cause the race to really push on. We need that final 30 kilometres of good racing to the end, especially on a stage like this, because there were so much expectations, not only of ourselves but also the organisers, as we talked about in the earlier part of the programme. Fernando Escartin, he designed this route today, to just shake up the race a bit to make it interesting, because we have these days of the sprinters and they can be, go flat, get a bit boring because they allow a breakaway out front and they just control it. With the wind conditions, a team can't boss it at all. It's just you've got to race if the wind is blowing.
Well, it's Al Krieger you're looking at right now, who's putting his arm around Jesper Philipsen, who had green on his back yesterday. He's handed that over to Fabio Jakobsen, but Philipsen himself, how will they approach today? How do you stop, Sean, the likes of Jakobsen, who's in his pomp at the moment, and Arnaud Demar, who looks like he's advancing, taking steps forward? Philipsen, if it was a ramp finish today, would probably start as favourite. Nobody mentioning him today as a potential, but he's got the potential to upset.
Certainly has, and I think yesterday, was been finished, out of the top placings, out of the podium places. We'll probably forget him a little bit, but you cannot forget him because he's going to be there. And Fenix, Alpecin, they're a team that can prepare well. Yesterday they did really well. Unfortunately, in the very final, they got a bit crowded out. A kilometre plus, they were on the front with a number of riders. Philipsen was in a lovely position, maybe a bit too much to the front, but it's better to be more to the front than having to make up the ground. If you get knocked back a bit and you have to make up a bit, that always takes that bit more energy and can take from your sprint. So he was in a real good position, but unfortunately, it has to be all the way to the point where he can kick off his sprint, and that's the 200 metres before the finish line approximately. But you can get just knocked out, you can get crowded out so easily, and just a fraction of a second, the number of riders come up from another team and they move over, they close the door on you, and then it can be game over for that day.
Looking at this Arrow Straight Road at the moment, but the wind just starting to play a part, and a bigger one it is playing. Even the threat of the wind is causing some drama here. Welcome back, everyone who's been away on a commercial break. You'd probably expect me to say you haven't missed much, but quite frankly, the nerves are starting to be displayed within the peloton at the moment. It's because we've got a big turn coming up. We've seen as well Alexander Krieger putting his arm around Jesper Philipsen, who has clearly got a battle plan today. Krieger will be the last man standing within the lead-out train for Alpecin-Fenix's star turn. He was in green yesterday. He's handed that, of course, to Fabio Jakobsen, who we haven't seen much of today, the green jersey. It's been well hidden within the pack, so they've done that job. You can see the way the spray is just kind of dissipating at the moment, that we have got a little bit of a breeze, and it's picking up actually to be a modest wind because of the storm systems that are around here. The wind farms have been busy plying their trade, and the sprinters are going to have their fun in a short while. However, we've got a turn coming in about 5 or 6 kilometres time, and everyone's alive to the fact that it is there and the danger therein. Here is Fabio Jakobsen wearing the green today. Should belong to him at the end of today. He's the out-and-out favourite. But Demar's advancing, and Philipsen cannot be discounted on a day like this, and I think there's a few others like Milano who will play a big part. Michael Matthews been wily as well, and if it does get a bit hectic, and it could do, even on a straight highway, Cherie, that carries its own dangers, doesn't it? Often if you give a peloton too much space, too many want bragging rights and indeed to take advantage of it, and that's when you can get touches of wheels. It doesn't necessarily mean that a lack of a technical approach has any less danger.
No, you know, when you look at a stage, you've got a race almost within itself. So, you're getting to what we call the pointy end of the race, and in particular the last 20 kilometres. When we have this left turn up at 30k, it's relatively from the right shoulder. It is crosswind 15 to 20 kilometres an hour, and then picks up inside 20 to go. So there's the stresses within that, in getting your sprinters, keeping your sprinters safe, but not only that, is keeping your GC men and your leaders to that 3k point, inside that 3k, to get them there safely.
Here is that moment where the breakaway starts to re-engage. If they've been saving any energy today, it's a difficult thing to do, I guess you might say, but they've been almost been in a privileged position out front. All of a sudden, Sean, they've decided to invest here.
They have to just, keep on pushing here and see how long they can hang out, because they've been out here all day. Another 5, 10, 15 kilometres is not going to change a lot for those guys, and they just want to get as much out of the day, pub-wise, as they say in France. That's what it's about now, and they know that this is not going to happen for them for the stage, because we can see the way the sprinters teams are starting to form at the front, also the GC teams, and this sort of terrain, wide open terrain, 3 men out front. When you're out there for a long time, the manpower back in this peloton is huge, and the moment they start racing, they start trying to take control of the front of the peloton between the big teams, well then this advantage of 2 minutes plus will melt down rapidly.
Okay, Sharia, I need to know. Mads Wirtz is going to be doing a job today, but who's the principal sprint for Israel Startup Nation? Is it Einhorn or Chimolai today?
Oh, well, I guess
we're
putting a lot of faith into Itamar Einhorn, and we're hoping that Chimolai is going to be there. Chimolai is sort of guiding in Itamar, so fingers crossed that they have a clean sweep and get a great result for the team.
Well, it can happen. We talk about those teams that can pick something up off the table. Yesterday, of course, Magnus Cort Nielsen did a great job for Education First. Why not Israel Startup Nation today? Let's check out the green jersey rankings as it stands at the moment. And there it is, Fabio Jakobsen on 100 points. Philipsen, courtesy the intermediate sprint, he was on 68, he's now on 81, picked up the 13. Demar as well added to his tally, he was on 33, picked up the 10, the last points of the intermediate, moves into 4th place. So a victory for Demar today would help him. Matthews will be out to stop him, you can be sure of that. We'll see who else comes and joins the party today. Cherie thinks it's going to be Itamar Einhorn, and if she says so, I'm going to go with it. 34.4 kilometres from home, and it's a breakdown of our breakaway right now. And first man to pull the ripcord is Sanchez of Burgos. Pelayo Sanchez will be reabsorbed first. Still waiting for this turn. It doesn't come for another 3 kilometres or so. It's just round that crusty knoll. There you go. We are going to be having a brief, what is it, Freddie Pino? Can't remember who we're going to be speaking to in a few moments' time. We will find, I think it might well be Fabio Jakobsen himself. That'd be nice. You can see just the cut beyond the trees, it is Jakobsen as Lazcano and Asparin. Just keep it going. This will be a battle for the combativity prize, you can be certain of that. Here is Fabio Jakobsen, his thoughts on today in green.
So we are here with the winner of yesterday, wearing the green jersey, Fabio Jakobsen. How did you sleep last night?
Well, okay. I got a lot of messages. I couldn't answer them all, but I had a good sleep. Yeah, it was nice.
What was the best message you got yesterday or today?
I think the message from my fiancée. We came all the way here. She supported me, and she's a bit scared watching the sprints, but yeah, I guess she's happy now that I still got it.
Must be so emotional also for your friends and family watching you win yesterday.
Yeah, they know it's been quite a long road back, and I fought very hard to get to this point, and then to be able to win in a sprint like that against Demar. I also surprised them a little bit, I guess, on a finish like yesterday.
So now you're definitely back with a new opportunity today. What about your chances today, and also with the wind coming up?
Yeah, it's the most flat day, I guess, of the Vuelta. A lot of wind towards Albacete, and yeah, the last 4K is perfect for a bunch sprint. So yeah, we're gonna do our best.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, it's not Tuesday, it's not Shrove Tuesday, but we've got a pancake today, and they may be fat and boring to some of you, but you can roll them up and make them into a delicious feast, and I think that's what we're going to have today. Think crepe Suzette, why not? And a spot of rain as well. That's not a drop bead on, I don't think. We've seen that on the helicopter as well, so I don't think that'll be a major factor. I can't see the storm clouds bursting just yet. And maybe overnight, maybe we'll have wet roads tomorrow morning. I've no idea. But one thing we do know is that the breeze that accompanies those storms is just starting to pick up. And as a result, it's put the wind up the peloton. They have got themselves into more or less colour order at the moment. They're going to be looking after their principals on the run-in. And this could be nervous times for everybody, not least for DS's, Cherie. If you are in an advantageous position, you've got principals to look after. This 3 kilometre rule, they've talked about extending it out to 6 kilometres, 5 kilometres perhaps. I'm not sure it'd do much good. It would still have the same impact.
Yeah, I think it depends on the last 3 kilometres or the final run-in. You know, if there's a horrible descent or some really tricky roundabouts. But generally, the 3K rule is rule of thumb, and most obviously all the teams know that if they get their protected leader or their sprinters into that position, you should be safe if there's any sort of incident. But just on the run-in as well, you know, we also have what we call an advanced car or front car, where they'll be giving us information on particularly the wind now that's coming up at kilometre 31 when we turn left. So we'll be getting real up-to-date information from that front car, and we'll be able to guide and give the team the information.
Waiting for this big turn, Sean. Still waiting for it, where the wind will essentially become a crosswind that everyone's concerned about. How worried are you?
Not a bit.
Sean's been practicing his clipped answers.
Well, I don't think as a director, you don't need to get too nervous. You have to just relay, as Cherie said, relay the information. Just very surprised, short stuff, and don't complicate it for the riders, and let them get on with the business. And they know the moment you ring the bell that this turning point is the second point on the road today. And I think in general that's all was really in the route of today, and to be up there. And we can see the teams already are in position for a long time. And yeah, some of the riders will really get nervous here because they do not like these windy conditions, but some riders they love as well. And we know the Tarancón Quick Step, those teams, the sprinters teams, they can handle that very well. So they will just get on with the job, do their business here, and get into the final. And looking out ahead here, I'm a little bit concerned that we could get a little bit of that rain shower there. It was talked about thunderstorms for later in the afternoon, but who knows, we could get wet roads in the final, and that would make it crazy dangerous.
It could do. Let's hope that stays away. Nonetheless, they're taking their big turn. It's a left-hander, by the way, as is being displayed to you now. So they'll take a quarter of this roundabout. Once they exit town, then they will be in the exposed plain again. There's not much variation in terms of altitude today. In fact, only 640 metres of altitude gain over a full reach of 184 and more kilometres today. That's about as flat as you can possibly imagine. However, once we come out of town here, we'll have 30 k's remaining. Cherie, you're going to be on the sofa a little bit later on today. Who do you think you'll be describing as winner?
Well, I put my hand up this morning for Arnaud Demar, so I'm going to stick with that. I think the Frenchman is due a win after the way the team rode for them. 3 guys at the front there, it just didn't go quite right for him, and obviously the strongest man on the day one with Fabio Jakobsen.
I'm sure you'll be bouncing off the sofa if Itamar gets himself into a decent position.
Oh, of course, yeah. I can see right now Sepp Vermark is guiding probably Chimolai and then Itamar up there, keeping his man up front. They'll also know about the wind as well, and as you can see, Ineos and Movistar and Jumbo-Visma up there, just making sure that their riders are in a position. Bernal's telling his man there to just calm it down a bit.
yeah, please don't kill us all here. please. Yeah, Dylan van Baarle, great man in a situation such as this. Of course, De Koning as well, with the likes of Bert van Lerberke. He's highly experienced. Zdenek Zibar as well. Interesting as well here to see Sepp van Mark, big-shouldered man that he is, offers up a great deal of wind protection to those in his charge. And charging behind him, UE Team Emirates. It's getting very lively, this, Sean.
Yes, well, it's getting a bit more nervous there, and you can see there the teams and the riders that are on the front. They just want to be in the position they need to be in case that it really pushes on, and it does break up into groups, echelons, and you could see there Bernal was telling his man there just to knock it off a little bit, not to give it too much, and Sivakov was the man on the front, and that's what you've got to do. You've just keep the position on the front, keep a good pace, but certainly not give it anything near 100% here, and just wait, look, have a look about, see what's happening, and if it does kick off, well, then you have to be just ready to look after your leader.
So last words, Cherie, from you before we let you go to the sofa. What would you be saying to the team right now? Is it just stick to the plan?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, they'd already know the plan, and they've got to adapt. We'll have a protected leader, a road captain in there that will be giving instruction on the road, and it's fingers crossed that they get through safely and have a good result for the team.
Thank you, Cherie. We look forward to seeing you in the post-race show later on today, and indeed enjoying your good company as we get deeper into this fantastic race.
Thank you, Golf.
Good to have you along. 27.6 kilometres then from home, and that washing machine effect that we talk about so often is being displayed to you right now. Quinn Simmons' boys, Trek Segafredo, want a piece of the action. They're coming up with the white and the red bands across their backs as you look at it. We will have UE Team Emirates as well. We've seen them making a nuisance of themselves out towards the front. Mathieu Trentin will be leading in Milano later on today. Quebec have some hopes for Janssen van Rensburg, one can imagine, but you kind of feel that there really is a trident of possibilities today, and it's Philipsen, Jacobsen and De Maar. What about those who hope to take or repeat what Magnus Cort Nielsen did yesterday and indeed steal something from them? Well, Jordi Meus will be hoping for that, led in by Martin Lass. For Bora Hansgrohe, they could do with some good luck. Michael Matthews, clever rider. He's a man who knows when to impose the sprints that he has within him. Usually prefers tougher conditions, but he surfs wheels very, very well indeed. He's got Luca Mezgec here and Rob Stannard, but I think he'll be looking to try and fight for a few wheels out there and just keep his overall bid for green alive. When the stages get a bit more lumpy, that's when you're going to see more of Michael Matthews, but he'll be a feature today. You can be absolutely sure of that. Ineos Grenadiers getting themselves up to the front. This is nice to see as well. We have Bernal, of course, as part of the group, but this is Navarez, who's just hitting the front at the moment. We've got Richard Carapaz, who wants to stay safe with the Olympic helmet upon his head there, you can see in the gold. Adam Yates looking absolutely core solid at the moment. He looks like that going up mountains as well. Phenomenal athlete, and it's great to see him so well placed. Valverde's just moved up here as well for Movistar. A side option, you might say, almost an hors d'oeuvre, but that can happen on days like today. Don't be surprised if somebody like Cairaral's Aberasturi takes a big step forward today. He's a great wheel surfer, and on days like this, boulevard finishes, he can actually pop up and do some real damage for Cairaral. So let's wait and see. I mean in a good way, if you'll excuse me. JJ Lobato for Euskaltel perhaps, but really we're focusing on De Maar, Jacobsen and Philipsen today, despite what Clement Venturini might say for AG2R Citroën, and a few others as well, like Minali perhaps from Wanty. I think that his job will be looking after the red jersey, which they've done so effectively. Just looking at the back end here of Camargo, they have Magnus Cort, who'll presumably have another dig today, and there's a slowdown. And indeed the gap to the breakaway has gone back up to 1:23. It's down to 2 riders, we remind you, after Sanchez for Burgos backed out of it a short while ago. Nothing happening as far as the windmill is concerned, but it doesn't have the covers on the vanes, so that wouldn't happen anyway. Meanwhile, let's talk about our approach. Sean, there's a whole plethora of roundabouts which, I don't know, 20 years ago you couldn't find a roundabout in Spain or France. Now you can't move for them.
Yes, well, it's an interesting one, and depend on how tight the roundabouts are and what way you get around them, what position you're in. Sometimes the roundabouts, you can go through them pretty much straight on, so it might not be too much of a problem. But this 1 kilometre straight line after we take that final right-hander, it's a one where it can be a problem, because if a team is not keeping the pace massively high, you can get riders coming up and crowding you out, and that's something we see yesterday with some of the sprinters, and we see it many times. So it's it looks pretty straightforward, the run-in, but it can get complicated as well, and I think we should have maybe a little bit of a tailwind down that finishing straight from my directions. But it's sometimes when you have a team on the front and you have maybe 3 or 4 of your teammates in front, and you get to the very front of the main peloton, then if you have corners all the time, there's not the opportunity for riders to come up, a big flush of riders, 5, 6, 10 riders at a time. So it's better in that situation. So with this one looking pretty straightforward, and as you said earlier on, Carlton, the wider the road, it doesn't take the dangers out. We could still see some problems here in the run to the line.
Certainly could. We're going to hear in a few moments' time from Jesper Philipsen. It'll be our last interview before we get to the line today. Our thanks to our friends in the trenches who've been bringing us those interviews so valiantly today. Our approach as the nerves have ebbed a little bit as the wind has abated again. It blew up remarkably for a short while. There was a sprint to make to make it for a little bit of barrier encroachment there. I'm not quite sure what the banner was displaying. It's not a sprint or anything, but nonetheless, maybe it was just hoved in to protect from a ragged side of the road. You never know. Let's hear from Jesper Philipsen about what he's got to do today. We saw a short while ago that Alex Krieger was putting his arm around him, trying to calm the nerves. Perhaps here he is.
With Jesper Philipsen, the sprinter of the team Alpecin-Fenix. Jesper, a few words about yesterday. It didn't happen as you wanted.
Yeah, of course, it was not the result we were aiming for, but that's sprinting, and today is probably already a new chance, so let's hope we can turn the page.
On the stage 2, we saw you and the team very strong in a massive sprint, so today your lead out will be more important than yesterday.
Yeah, I think we have a really strong team, and we all know what to do, so we go for it 100%, and we try to repeat the first sprint success, and we just need to have the confidence that it's possible.
What about the crosswind? Because everybody talks about crosswind today. There are big teams like the Canadian Quick Step. What about your team in this kind of scenario?
Yeah, I think our team will be attentive, and we will. Normally we have a good team for the crosswind as well, so we just need to be attentive and don't let ourselves surprise if there will be crosswinds.
Personally, this is something you like?
Yeah, normally yes. If I'm in the first group, then I like it. Yeah. If I'm completely in the back, then I like a little less.
Thank you, Jasper. Good luck.
There we are. Nice to see James Knox just hanging the wheel out front, just almost tempting others to roll through. A minute and 34. When does a minute and 34 become a worry, Sean? We've got a sprinter up the road in Lazcano. I guess within plain sight, though. It's only 93 seconds on an hour straight road like this. You could probably be 5 minutes up the road. You could still see the backside.
Yes, well, I don't think it's any concern. The riders still out in front here. We did see there, as we came to that turning point where the direction was changing, there was, a bit of a push on from the teams and trying to, keep them into the front, and it speeded up quite a lot, and now it's knocked down again. And that tells the wind is not there to cause any problems. And it's calmed off a lot, and for that reason, the ones out front here are giving their all here. You can see the way they're riding. They're just riding full on here, but 134, another man finished here, so that tells us that these guys are totally empty. And this stage out there in front with 3 riders, it's a big ask, and it's going to tell, and it's going to hit you at some point, and it's hitting these guys pretty early, but still with 21 kilometres to go.
Asperin has had enough. You could see he was just about to go pop. It's a good investment by him today. Long old day as well on this kind of terrain to be out there, and he's just beaming her back to base and deciding what drink he'd like from the car, and it's been well earned.